The anime begins with Tenma, a 16-year-old girl in her second year of high school. She's in love with Karasuma and wishes with all her heart to be in the same class as him this year, a 2C class. On the other hand, the school Karina looks for his name on the class 2C list, since he also wants to be in the same class as Tenma because he is in love with her. Suddenly, the school principal appears and tells Harina that he was held back for a year, and that is why he is not on the second-year class list. After that, Tenma searches for Karasuma's name, and to her happiness, he is also in class 2C, but that happiness will not last long because she hears him saying that he will transfer the day after tomorrow. Later, Tenma cannot get rid of the sadness that consumes her and decides to write him a letter confessing that she loves him, but writing "I love you" is something very difficult for her and she spends the whole night trying. When dawn breaks, she gives up and prefers to write to him about her feelings and manages to write a long scroll and leaves it in his locker. Then she hides to see Karasuma's reaction, although her scroll is so long that it takes him a whole day to finish reading it, and to Tenma's disappointment, he does not react as she expected because she forgot to write her name. The next day, Tenma walks into her classroom resignedly and almost jumps for joy when she sees Karasuma there. It turns out that she asked him so many times not to leave on the scroll that he decided to postpone his transfer of school to the United States. Later, Tenma goes to the library to read about love, since she is an inexperienced girl, but there are words that she does not know, and she asks the person sitting next to her what they mean, and that person is Karasuma, who with his stoic attitude answers her, but when she continues to insist on asking him, he leaves. Tenma can't believe she is so hopeless, although she is happy because she talked to him for the first time. The next day, Harina surprises everyone by being in class 2C, since he had to beg the school principal to promote him so he could be Tenma's classmate. Later, he finds Noguru's letter in his locker challenging him to a fight and tears it up before reading it, although that gives him the idea to write a letter to Tenma and put it in her locker. Later, Harima goes to the place where he arranged his meeting with Tenma, but unfortunately, it is the same place where Noboru had summoned Harima to fight. Then Tenma tells Noboru that she received a love letter and thought it was wonderful. Then the guy lies that it is his letter, and Tenma apologizes for not accepting his feelings since she loves someone else and leaves. Harima first consoles Noboru, who cries for being rejected, and then gives him what he deserves for the credit for the letter. Later, as Tenma and Harima return home, they think about how to get closer to their respective crushes, and the two think about riding their bikes to school to spend more time with their crushes, she with Karasuma and he with Tenma. The next day, Tenma sees Karasuma passing by on his bike, but he goes so fast that she has to chase him pedaling to full speed. Further ahead, Harima sees Tenma pass by at high speed, and he pursues her pedaling with her steel legs. The three of them drive their bikes at such a speed that they leave the hair of Eri, one of Tenma's friends, in a mess. Later in class, Tenma and Harima fall asleep because they got tired from pedaling so much. Chapter 2. The next day, Tenma and Harima's class has an English exam, and he realizes that his beloved Tenma forgot to write her name, so he tries various ways to make her known, from whispering to telling the class out loud to not forget to write their name. But she is so hopeless that she doesn't notice. So Harima writes her name on his exam so that she at least gets a grade on the exam, since exams without a name will not be graded. Unfortunately, Harima's exam was poorly done, so Tenma's grade is 0. After that, Tenma and her friends go to the bathroom, and when everyone comes out, Tenma is stuck inside because Karasuma is outside and she is embarrassed that he sees her, even though it is normal for a girl to leave the bathroom. Then Tenma plans several tactics to get out of it without him seeing her, like throwing a mop at him to distract him, but she accidentally hits Harima, and then she hides again. She also tries to cover her face with toilet paper, but that doesn't work either. Finally, Tenma decides to go down through the bathroom window using Plunger's handle, but when she reaches the floor, Karasuma is also there and her feminine pride is hurt. At night, Tenma weighs herself and is disheartened when she realizes that she has gained weight and tomorrow is her school physical revision. The next day, Tenma listens sadly as all the girls lost weight for today, while her male classmates have fun at their expense. Imidori tries to guess the size of the girls' and Fuyuki keeps taking photos of all of them. Fortunately, Hine, the class representative, confiscates his camera and scolds them for such behavior. All the talk about measurements and heights makes Tenma wonder about Karasuma's personal information, and her friends say that only doctors and nurses can know that. Suddenly, Tenma has the idea of disguising herself as a nurse to discover Karasuma's personal information, but when she enters the doctor's office who will check the students, she finds Harima disguised as a doctor, since he had the same idea as her. Unfortunately for both of them, the school medical checkup is cancelled and their plans are thwarted. Chapter 3. The next day in art class, Tenma and Karasuma have to draw each other, but Tenma is so nervous that she doesn't stop moving, and on top of that, she didn't comb her hair properly today. So she runs to the bathroom even though Karasuma doesn't stop drawing her. Later, Tenma shows her friends Karasuma's sketch and they are surprised by her wonderful work, while Tenma just wants to see her sketch done by him. But when she sees the drawing of her, she is disappointed because he drew her using the ukiyo-e technique, a 17th century drawing style. At night, while Tenma watches her favorite series from ancient Japan, it occurs to her to confess her love to Karasuma using arrows, so the next day, she dresses as an archer and arms herself with arrows ready to send him her love letter. Throughout the day, Tenma shoots arrows at Karasuma, but he manages to escape them all, so when he enters the bank, she thinks that finally he will not escape from her. But when she enters the bank, she sees that some in the bank are held in hostage and they get scared when they see her with arrows, so they immediately surrender. The next day, Tenma decides to invite her friends Mikoto, Eri, and Akira to a sleepover party to ask them for love advice. At night, the girls have fun bathing together, eating snacks made by her little sister, Ikumo. Then Tenma asks the girls how to confess her feelings to a boy, and Akira says that the best way is to use the suspension bridge effect, which consists of using tactics to make a boy fall in love, such as being cute or dolling up for him. But Mikoto says that the important thing is her inner essence, and Tenma hugs her grateful for her advice. But then she gets angry because for someone with Mikoto's curvy body, it is easy to give that advice. Meanwhile, in the city night, Harima hears some girls talking about the suspension bridge effect, and he plans to follow it to the letter. The next day, when Tenma leaves school, she decides to take a shortcut to her house, and Harima follows her to defend her if necessary, which happens since a guy tries to attack her, and Harima saves her by wearing a police outfit to seem cooler and gain her admiration. But Tenma is so dense that she doesn't even realize that her savior is Harima, and thanks him as if he were a police officer. Chapter 4 days later, Tenma's class goes on a spring trip and both she and Harima are willing to sit next to their crush, but Harima ends up sitting next to Karasuma and has to turn his back on her because Karasuma wants to play cards with him. Halfway through the trip, the school bus stops for a bathroom break, so Harima gets off and can't stop thinking about topics of conversation to have with Tenma. After that, he gets on the bus again, but it's the wrong bus and he ends up sitting with old people. And when he tries to escape, he falls into a pig truck. And then when he jumps again, he falls onto a train that takes him on opposite direction. Meanwhile, on the school bus, Tenma tries to sit next to Karasuma, but Eri beats him to it and sits next to him. So Tenma starts moving her seat so much that she gets dizzy, which causes Eri to go sit in front of the bus. Unfortunately, Tenma also gets dizzy and goes to sit up front with Eri. Days later, Tenma realizes that her sister Yakumo prepared 3 lunchboxes and she suspects that Yakumo is in love with someone, so she decides to follow her to see who gives her the lunchbox, and to her surprise, it is for a black cat, which totally ignores Yakumo. Later, Yakumo goes to school and everyone admires her as she walks. She is beautiful, agile, and popular, but she has a flaw. She does not realize her popularity, nor the black cat that followed her to school. Yakumo spends the school day unperturbed. The only thing that would bother her is if someone talks ill about her beloved sister Tenma. At night, Yakumo cooks dinner for Tenma, and then she goes to see the stray black cat and saves him from a branch that was about to break, which makes her gain the cat's trust. The next day, a spectacular opportunity presents itself to Tenma. It is raining a lot and Karasuma does not have an umbrella, so she offers him to share hers, but he has a raincoat and a kappa, so he politely declines and leaves. Chapter 5. Sometime later, Itoko, Harima's teacher and cousin, invites him to lunch because she is curious about his crush on Tenma, since she believed that he would never fall in love. Then he confesses that it all started last year, but before he can continue, Itoko asks him to tell her out loud since she realized that Tenma is sitting behind him. It turns out that last year, Harima saved Tenma from but the fight got ugly, and the guy cut his back with a knife, which scared Tenma so much that she fainted. Then Harima took her to his apartment, and while he was waiting for her to wake up, he approached her to look her in detail, realizing that she was very pretty, but suddenly, Tenma grabbed his face saying that he loved him, and when she was about to kiss him, he moved her face away as best he could, but that caused her to wake up. Tenma misinterpreted the situation and thought he was so she threw him to the ground and left. From that moment on, Harima decided to grow a mustache and put on glasses to prevent her from discovering his true identity. Suddenly, Tenma says that the girl was to blame for what happened, but Harima quickly hides behind the waiter, and she forgets about it because she is hungry. The next day at school, Yakumo is invited to be part of the tea club. But not only does she go to the meeting, but also Hane, her biggest fan, who follows her to all the clubs she wants to go. Then Itoko tells Akira that she as club president should decide if Hane can stay, and Akira decides to test Hane. She gives him 2 cups of tea, and he must guess which one is Yakumo's favorite. If he guesses right, he can stay in the club, but it's not just any tea. She gave him black pepper tea, so the more tea he drinks, the redder he turns. In the end, he faints and Akira disqualifies him, telling Yakumo that she is welcome in the club and they will take care of Hane. The next day, Hane announces to Tenma's class that they will use homeroom time to play softball. Tenma doesn't like the idea because she is terrible. In the match, those who stand out the most positively are Eri, Mikoto, and Akira, while Tenma tries her best to impress Karasuma, but fails miserably. Then Imanori asks Tenma to replace her since he wants to impress his fan club, and she gladly accepts, but that doesn't seem good to Eri and Harima. So when it's his time to bat, he intentionally hits Imanori with a ball. It's time to choose a new pitcher, and to everyone's surprise, Karasuma chooses Tenma and advises her not to think about what others say, although he then reveals that Eri asked him to tell her that. Finally, it's Tenma's turn, but she throws a ball so hard that it hits Harima, immediately ending the match. Chapter 6. The next day after PE class, Tenma stays locked in the storage room, and instead of worrying, she decides to take a nap until someone notices that she is not there. Hours later, when she wakes up, she realizes that the sun is already setting, and she is still locked up, and on top of that, she is hungry. So she searches everywhere and miraculously finds a bread from the school cafeteria and eats it without thinking much. Unfortunately, the bread was a pepper and curry one, causing her tongue to burn, and she has no water, so she decides to activate the sprinkler. She drinks all the water she can but ends up with all her clothes wet and takes off her shirt to dry it. At night, she hears someone inside the storage room and is shocked to see Karasuma waking up from a long nap. The problem is that she is shirtless, so she grabs her shirt and gains the courage to jump out the window, but that is better than him seeing her shirtless. Meanwhile, Harima has another fight with Noboru where the bald guy tells him that Tenma likes someone, and that breaks Harima's heart, so he decides to find out who it is. The next day, Harima carefully observes Tenma's interactions with other boys but can't discover who her crush could be until at one point Tenma stares at Karasuma and he thinks he is looking at him and gets so happy that he decides to confess his love later. Later, he buys her a bouquet of yellow roses and goes to look for her on his motorcycle, and he is in such a hurry to get to her that he doesn't hear her when she yells that a car is about to hit him. Later, Harima wakes up in the hospital and doesn't remember what happened or why he feels happy, so he doesn't understand why Tenma came to visit him with a bouquet of flowers, which makes him feel like the luckiest boy in the world. Then, Atoko asks Tenma to go put the flowers in a vase and tells Harima that she will leave him alone, but he panics and asks her to stay. But Atoko has a plan. She gives him a microphone and an earphone to help him have a conversation with Tenma. The first few sentences go well until Atoko makes him complete Tenma's silhouette, which is a little embarrassing, but she takes it well. After that, Harima decides to thank her for the flowers by complimenting her beauty, but Tenma understands that he is talking about an anecdote and he ends up inventing one. Then Atoko leaves him alone and Harima manages as best he can to chat with Tenma. Although it's quite simple, he even makes her laugh, and that gives him the courage to confess his feelings, but he took so long to encourage himself that Tenma already left and he ended up hugging Atoko by mistake. Chapter 7. Days later, Harima returns to school and continues trying to guess who Tenma's crush is, while Hamai can't stop thinking about Yakumo. He has been in love with her since he met her for the first time. Then, when he hears that Yakumo's class must clean the pool, Hamai interferes and offers his own class to do the job. So while everyone cleans the pool, Harima thinks that maybe Hamai is Tenma's crush because he saw them talking once and he starts a hockey duel against him using soap and brooms. Suddenly, Yakumo arrives and Hamai changes his behavior and pretends that they were having a hockey pre-match to decide what they will do at the school festival, a show or sales booth. Then Tenma and Harima quickly join the team booth sales alongside Mikoto, while Eri, Hanae, and Akira are part of the show team. Hamai wants his class to do the Sleeping Beauty play and will invite Yakumo to star alongside him, while Tenma and Hamai want a coffee sale because she wants server coffee to Karasuma, while Harima wants coffee made by Tenma. The match quickly begins and is a very aggressive one since Mikoto and Hamai trained Shanji for several years. Quickly, Harima scores a goal, but Karasuma cancels it out and more students decide to join the game because it is fun. Then Fuyuki starts taking photos of all the girls and is chased by Hamai and Harima until they collide with the water faucet, breaking it and causing all the students to get wet. The next day, Mikoto scolds Hamai for his attitude, telling him that Yakumo cannot be the Sleeping Beauty because she is a first-year student, which leaves him sad and he has to settle for buying the photos that Fuyuki took of Yakumo. Chapter 8. Days later, Eri happily makes a shopping list because she's going to cook for someone special, but her thoughts are interrupted by a boy who wants to ask her out, but she rejects him without even wanting to listen to them. All this is heard by Harima, who advises Eri to be nicer to the boys she rejects, but Eri does not pay attention and goes to the supermarket. After purchasing all the ingredients she needs for her special dinner, a limousine parks next to her and her father tells her that he has an unforeseen important trip and won't be able to have dinner with her. She pretends she's okay with it, but inside her heart breaks and her tears mix with the rain. Fortunately, Harima was passing by and offers to walk her home using his umbrella, and she asks him what his favorite food is. It's curry. The next day, while Harima and Karasuma drink water, they talk about their favorite foods, and it turns out that Karasuma also likes curry, and this is heard by Tenma. At night, she asks her sister to help her cook a lunchbox with curry and rice, but since Tenma doesn't know how to cook, she will only assemble the boxes. The next day, Tenma shyly tells Karasuma that she has curry for lunch and wants him to help her eat it. Meanwhile, Harima listens to Tenma's friends talking about the boxes of curry that she brought today, and he assumes that Tenma's crushes him because she brought a box lunch of his favorite food and runs to look for her. On the other hand, when Tenma and Karasma open the lunch boxes, they see that they only have rice, and before Tenma falls into the abyss of despair, Karasuma uses salt to make rice balls. Unfortunately for Harima, he sees all this and realizes that Tenma's crush is Karasuma. Meanwhile, Yakumo opens his lunchbox and it turns out that she has 2 boxes of curry, and she has to go to his sister's classroom to exchange them, but she doesn't feel comfortable going. Her friend Sarah thinks it's because of Hamai, although in reality it's because she doesn't feel good around boys. Even so, for her sister's sake, she goes to classroom 2C and can't even cross the door because all the boys want to make her fall in love. The next day, Harima refuses to go to school because he is sad and heartbroken, although then he watches a TV show about optical illusion and thinks that he saw the scene wrong and that Tenma and Karasuma only have affection as if they were siblings. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door and he runs thinking that Tenma is at the door, but it is Noboru. He is angry because he left him waiting for more than a day and takes him away to give him the beating of his life. Chapter 9. Days later, Harima spends hours drawing a manga where Karasuma is the villain and has kidnapped Tenma, while he is the hero and must defeat him to save her. The next day, he takes his work to a company that publishes the manga of his favorite mangaka. The editor is enthusiastic about Harima's work, but suddenly, Harima's favorite mangaka enters and it is none other than Karasuma. Then Harima breaks his manga and leaves the publishing house regardless of the fact that it's pouring rain. Meanwhile, in a cafeteria, Tenma can't stop smiling. Her friends ask her if rice balls are Karasuma's favorite food since she has been feeding him with that for days, and that makes Tenma realize that he was only eating them out of courtesy since his favorite food is curry. Even so, her friends encourage her to prepare homemade food for him since it is the best way to win the boy's heart. On the other hand, a woman approaches Harima and offers him her house to dry out and rest. Harima is very sad. She feels that Karasuma has everything from him, and the lady understands him and says that he can sleep in her apartment. The next day, Harima sees his work parched and a note from the woman encouraging him to continue drawing and give up. Meanwhile, Tenma tries to cook homemade curry, but it is so useless that she cuts her finger. Then she burns at the stew, and when she finally finishes, it tastes horrible. Even the cat doesn't want to eat it and runs away from home. Then Tenma runs after the cat and runs into Harima, but he pretends not to see her because he has decided to let her go. But when the kitten falls into the river, she starts screaming for help and he has no choice but to jump into the river and save the cat. He is worried that she will recognize him without the glasses, but she doesn't and thanks him as if he were a stranger. Chapter 10 days later, Mikoto hurts her hand training with Hame and is a little worried because an important exam is coming up and she can't even hold a pencil, so she goes to a shrine to pray. What she didn't expect was to find Harima believing himself God and giving her a solution to her problem. She thanks him and asks him to go back to school because he hasn't been there for days. After that, she goes to school and along with the other girls, they see that Tenma eating rice balls with Karasuma again, and Akira decides that it is time to intervene with the help of Fuyuki. After school, the 4 friends plus Karasuma and Fuyaki decide to go eat curry together at a new restaurant, but halfway there, the girls and Fuyuki make excuses and leave Karasuma and Tenma alone. On the other hand, Eri goes to the new fortune teller who is famous for always being right because he talks to animals, and he is none other than Harima. She asks him what her father's favorite food is, and he says that according to the frog is the curry. Eri believes him and asks him to go back to school. Later, Karasuma and Tenma pass by Harima's stall and she does not recognize him and shyly asks him to tell her love fortune. But before Harima says anything, Tenma asks Karasuma who he would choose between her and curry, and he chooses curry. Tenma can't believe it, and she runs away embarrassed and crying. This makes Harima angry, and he is ready to fight with Karasuma, but he tells him to go after her because he won't, he just wants to eat curry. Harima runs quickly trying to reach Tenma, but he falls down some stairs and can barely walk, and when a girl comes to help him, he believes it is Tenma and confesses that he loves her. Unfortunately for him, it's Eri who doesn't realize that the confession wasn't for her and blushes. Meanwhile, Akira, Mikoto, and Fuyuki talk about love and think that they will never see Eri in love, so they are shocked when they see her blushing with a Harima kneeling in front of her. And not only that, suddenly, Tae arrives and tells Harima that today she will cook a delicious dinner for him. That baffles Eri, and she kicks him. At home, Tae heals Harima's wound, and he says that Eri comes from a rich family, and that's why she doesn't like him. But thanks to her, he decided that tomorrow he will decide his fate. He will tell Tenma about his feelings, and if everything goes wrong, he will leave the school, so he writes 2 letters, one for her and one for the school principal. The next day, he leaves his love letter in Tenma's locker and waits for her on the roof, but he regrets it and runs to get it out. But he runs to Tenma, and she says that she read his resignation letter to the school and didn't like that. She wants him to go back to school, and he says he will. Later, Harima returns to his apartment with Itoko. Chapter 11. Days later, Tenma and her friends go to the public pool. Since she is the most childish of the four, she runs to the pool while her friends stay outside being hit by boys. That makes Tenma a little sad because she would also like to have the boys' attention, and suddenly, she runs into Nara, a classmate who hurt her tirade. He tells her that she is a little childish but very friendly, and that if she wants to go out so much, he asks her out and she quickly accepts. But the image of Karasuma flashes through her mind and she rejects Nara, saying that there is a boy she likes. That piques Nara's curiosity and he now sees Tenma with different eyes. Later, after swimming for a while, she goes with Nara to see her friends, and it turns out that the boys are friends of Nara, and one of them suggests going out the 8 together, but the girls don't want to, and another proposes a contest. Tenma excitedly proposes a swimming contest. If one of the girls wins, the date is canceled, but if one boy wins, the 8 of them will go on a summer date. Unfortunately, none of the girls know how to swim, only Tenma, so they lose the contest. The next day, Tenma takes shelter in a bus station due to the rain and runs into Karasuma. They have not spoken since the curry incident and she wants to be her friend again, but he misunderstands her and thinks that she wants him to lend her his kappa suit, and he lends it to her. So Tenma returns home with a turtle shell on her back, a lily pad as an umbrella, and a beak. A week later, it's the last day of school before summer break, and Harima hears all kinds of rumors about him. And not only that, he hears that Tenma and her friends are going on a date at the beach, and he thinks about punching the boy she will go with, although he later decides to ask her out, but ends up asking Fuyuki by mistake. Later, he and Tenma receive their grades, and they are the lowest in the class, so he feels happy for being born, so he can have something in common with Tenma. Days later, the two attend review classes with Akira as a tutor, and he finds out that she and other boys are going on a trip to the beach. It is no longer just a date. After the review classes, he walks with his head down and sees his nemesis fighting with some guys and doesn't intervene because he is now docile. At night, Nara receives a call from his friend saying that a guy attacked them and they won't be able to go on the beach trip. The next day, Tenma meets Imadori, Hanai, and Harima as possible replacements for the boys on the beach trip, and Harima thinks so much about how to convince her to invite him that he loses the opportunity. Imadori and Hanai are chosen. Harima remains sad in the classroom and screams heartbroken that he lost his chance to go to the beach with the girl he loves. Unfortunately for him, this is heard by Tenma, and she thinks that he is in love with one of her friends, so invites him to the beach trip and wishes him luck. Chapter 12 days later, Tenma and her friends meet at the train station to go to their beach trip, and Hame distributes the box lunches he made for everyone and is surprised to see Harima instead of Yakumo. Later, they separate in their rooms at the inn, and Imadori cannot resist the temptation of spying on the girls, but fortunately he is stopped by Hame. After that, everyone goes to the beach except Harima, who hasn't changed his clothes yet, but Eri forgot her sunscreen and returns to the inn. Then she accidentally opens the wrong door and finds Harima without clothes. She wants to scream, but he stops her because everything is a misunderstanding. But everything goes downhill when Akira enters and sees Harima without clothes covering Eri's mouth and not letting her move. But she evaluates the situation and realizes that he is innocent, although that does not take away his embarrassment. After that, they return to the beach and a commotion breaks out because Mikoto jumped into the sea without knowing how to swim, and Hame goes to rescue her. Then Hamane says it's time to teach the girls to swim, and Harima sees an opportunity to talk casually with Tenma, so he assigns the teams, but so that it does not seem arranged, he draws the couples, but it does not go as planned. Hame will teach Akira, although his teaching is theoretical, and he gets tired quickly after showing her how to swim. Imadori only wants to flirt with Mikoto, while Eri he refuses to take lessons from Harima. Meanwhile, Nara enjoys teaching Tenma since she has the ability to swim and learns quickly. Suddenly, she stands still and starts asking for help to find his swimsuit, and Nara quickly swims towards her to look for it. And when he finds something red in the sea, he gives it to her as if he were a hero. But in reality, it was Harima trunks. On the other hand, Mikoto and Imadori were dragged across the ocean to a cave far from the beach. They think ways to get back to the beach, but they are all discarded since Imadori does not have the stamina to swim there. They do not have ropes to assemble a raft, and they cannot make SOS signals. Their only hope is to trust their friends and wait for them because surely they will come out looking for them. But their friends are busy taking photos and cooking the barbecue. Chapter 13. Hours later, Mikoto and Imadori must swim back to the beach because it is already night and their friends did not come to look for them. Later, everyone gets together for dinner, and Imadori boasts that he taught Mikoto to swim so well that they swam 5 kilometers and offers to teach Tenma, which earns him hot tea on his leg by Harima. This makes Tenma suspect that Harima is in love with Mikoto and is jealous of Imadori, so she asks him to talk outside alone. Harima is in the clouds of happiness because he thinks that she already realized that he likes her, but soon he realizes that she thinks that he likes another girl. Then Tenma tells him that he can practice with her how to confess his feelings to his crush, but Harima can't even pronounce the word love. This exasperates Tenma, so she takes off his glasses and puts on a fake mustache and pretends to be him to show him how to talk about his feelings with his crush, but she only makes Harima laugh out loud. After that, she continues training him and almost gets him to finish saying I love you, but his shyness don't allow him. At night, everyone sleeps in a single room and the boys keep looking for ways to sleep near the girls. Nera tries to crawl towards Tenma, but Harima stops him, and Midori crawls towards Mikoto. But she keeps turning and finally decides to hit him. After that, Hamae hugs Harima, dreaming that he hugs Yakumo, and the two start fighting, which causes Harima to fall on Eri, and she punches him. All this is seen by Akira, who decided to sleep in the closet and record them with her digital camera. The next day, everyone returns to the city and Hanae and Mikoto go to their martial arts classes where the two defeat their rivals without breaking a sweat. Later, Hamae thinks about what to perform on Mikoto's birthday and finds an old flute, which brings back memories of his childhood and how he became friends with Mikoto. It turns out that when he was a kid, he was short and skinny and the neighborhood kids used to bully him for living in a dojo and being weak. While at school, he had no friends and everyone pushed him aside, and when the teacher asked them to find a partner to play the flute, he was left alone and decided to stop going to school. But one day, Mikoto appeared at his window saying that she would play the flute with him, but he didn't even want to open the window. But Mikoto didn't give up and spent weeks outside his window playing the flute so that he could learn, and even though Hamae didn't open the window, he practiced thanks to her. Unfortunately, one day Mikoto's mother found out that her daughter was spending hours outside a window playing the flute and scolded her for not resting since she has a cold. That made Hamae feel guilty, and he decided the next day to go back to school with Mikoto, but on the way they ran into Hamae's who started making fun of Mikoto for hanging out with a loser. But Mikoto didn't let them embarrass her and pushed those children far away, warning them not to bother them again. Since that day, they are friends at school and in the dojo. Days later, Hamae puts on a tuxedo and takes out his old flute to play the song they learned when they were children, and the funny thing is that Mikoto doesn't remember what happened and only laughs because Hamae plays the flute terribly. Chapter 14 days later, Tenma suffers the heat wave in the worst possible way. Without AC, she cries to Yakumo to solve it, but her sister tells her that the technician will only come in the afternoon. Meanwhile, Imidori meets Ichiju, a classmate with whom he doesn't talk much, but she is very pretty. She tells him that she likes amateur wrestling and he finds that adorable, and he wishes he had money to ask her out. Later, Eri goes to Tenma's house for summer homework, and the blonde takes the opportunity to ask her if she has ever seen a male body, and shockingly, Tenma says yes, although she talks about wrestlers. Eri still can't get over seeing Harima without clothes, and since she doesn't want to be left behind, she starts asking Tenma about male bodies, and she keeps answering as if she has gone far with the boy, when in fact she keeps talking about wrestlers. After that, Tenma changes the subject and tells her that she thinks Harima is in love with Mikoto, which makes Eri jealous and says that Mikoto is not that cute, unfortunately. This is overheard by Mikoto, and the atmosphere becomes tense. Tenma tries in every way to get them to talk to each other, but the girls continue to ignore each other. Later, Akira arrives with the photos from the beach trip, and Tenma says that it is obvious that Harima likes Mikoto, but Eri says bitingly that it doesn't seem that way and claims that Mikoto was hanging out with Imidori behind Harima's back. This angers Mikoto, who denies such accusations and says that she saw Eri holding hands with Harima, although the blonde defends herself by saying that he confessed his love for her, and that is why he held her hands. All that talk puts her in a bad mood and she leaves, which leaves Tenma sad because she helped Harima practice confessing his feelings to Mikoto, but it seems like he just wanted to play with her friends' hearts. All this is heard by Harima. Since he is working part-time as an air conditioning repair technician, he starts to cry because Tenma thinks the worst of him, and Yakumo comforts him by giving him rice balls. The next day, Harima goes to Hamae's dojo to ask him for help getting another part-time job, and luckily, he helps him. Later, Harima, Hamae, and Imidori, who wants money to go on dates, need to work as moving helpers, and Hamae and Harima have an ego fight to see who carries the heavier things. But their ego is deflated when they see Ishiju, their classmate, lifting things heavier than them, although she feels a little self-conscious about her strength. Luckily, Imidori brings out the chivalrous side of him and tells her that a girl shouldn't carry such heavy things and helps her throughout the day. Later, everyone receives their pay and Imidori asks Ishiju out, who she happily accepts. On the other hand, at night, Tenma is still sad because she and her friends were supposed to go to see the summer fireworks, but now they are fighting with no view of a possible reconciliation. Chapter 15. The next day, Harima returns to the publishing house and shows his boss his new manuscript, a romantic light novel where he and Tenma have a happy ending. When leaving, he runs into Eri, so he runs away from her because he fears that she will see his work and tell Tenma, but he runs so much that he runs into Mikoto, who takes him to a cafe to clear things up between them. Unfortunately, Eri enters the cafeteria and gets sad when she sees the two and thinks that they are on a date and runs away, but this time Mikoto won't let her run away, so she throws her bag and jacket at Harima and runs to chase her. The two run very fast, although Mikoto is at a disadvantage because she runs in heels and a skirt, so when she jumps over a fence, her skirt gets caught and her heels break. Eri realizes that she is no longer being chased by Mikoto and becomes more sad. Later, Mikoto returns to the dojo and Hamae is scared to see her torn skirt and her broken heels, and everything goes downhill when Harima shows up with Mikoto's jacket and bag. Hamae gets angry and starts hitting Harima, thinking that he hurt Mikoto, and although at first Harima wasn't fighting seriously, when he saw that Hamae wasn't holding back, he took off his jacket and they started fighting seriously. Later, Tenma calls Eri and asks her if she will go to see the fireworks with them the next day, and she promises that she will go. But it's a lie, she doesn't plan to go. On the other hand, Mikoto can't stop thinking about Eri, but suddenly she receives a text message that she has been waiting for a long time. Her lifelong crush is coming to visit the city tomorrow. Since middle school, she's been in love with Kaozu, who used to tutor her, while she helped him train at the dojo, although they grew apart when she entered high school and he went to college. Then she decides to go see him instead of going to see the fireworks, and although Tenma understands why she won't go, Eri says that she is a bad friend for preferring a boy over them. Mikoto knows that she is doing wrong, but she thinks that she also has the right to love. The next night, Mikoto is nervous about seeing Kazu again, but when she arrives at the bar, she soon realizes that he has a girlfriend and thinks she's fool for thinking that he would love her. Although she pretends that she is happy to see him with a girlfriend, when inside her heart breaks with every smile. On the other hand, Eri remembers how she met Mikoto last year. She was a new transfer student and there were wild rumors about her breaking hearts left and right, but Mikoto gave her a chance, and they both became friends and promised to see the fireworks this year in a secret place that only Mikoto knew about. So Eri runs to that secret place and finds Mikoto there. She says that she was dumped and Eri thinks that guy is a for that. But Mikoto deep down knows that it was a one-sided love. Soon the fireworks begin and Tenma and the others arrive just in time, and unintentionally, the friendship is recomposed. Meanwhile, Harima and Hamae continue fighting under the lights of the fireworks. Chapter 16 days later, the girls continue enjoying their summer, and this time they are going to the mountains to camp since Akira had prepared this trip with the tea club. But Sarah couldn't come, and it was going to be very lonely if only Yakumo and her were there, plus she didn't want to tell Hamae. Unfortunately, he found out about the trip to the mountain and went to ask Harima for help, who was accompanied by Imanori, so Hamae goes on a bike, while Harima and Imanori ride a motorcycle to the mountain. When they arrive, Hamae quickly takes charge of the group and assigns the jobs. Then Harima goes to collect firewood and is followed by Yakumo, who is curious about him, so he takes advantage of the fact that they are alone to ask her if Tenma was angry about something. To Harima's surprise, she knows about Tenma's anger, but explains it so clumsily that he understands that Tenma was angry with herself for not realizing sooner that Harima was trying to confess his feelings to her. He is now relieved and thanks Yakumo for the rice balls she gave him the other day, and that touches her. Unfortunately, Tenma heard the last part of their talk and now thinks that Harima is playing with her sister's heart and is not going to sit idly by. She wants to protect Yakumo from such. Back at camp, Eri orders Harima to buy her canned tea, and he obeys her because he's afraid that she will tell Tenma that he mistakenly confessed his feelings to her. Unfortunately for him, this is also seen by Tenma, so she pulls her sister aside and tells her that she should stay away from Harima. But Yakumo is sure that he's a good boy, and that angers Tenma, saying that he is a just like all men. Yakumo then debates that if all men are the same, Tenma shouldn't talk to Karasuma, which leaves Tenma speechless. Seeing herself cornered by Yakumo's logic, Tenma draws her last card, the Big Sister Power, so she orders Yakumo not to talk to Harima, which moves Yakumo as she realizes that her big sister is only worried about her. After that, Tenma challenges Harima to be her partner in the treasure hunt tonight, and he thinks that she will finally accept his feelings, but in reality, she wants to ask him to stop playing with her friends and sister. At night, Tenma forms couples to look for a charm in the mountain, and as she had planned, her partner is Harima. Unfortunately, it soon starts to rain and Harima must carry Tenma on his back to run for shelter. They find an abandoned house and Harima lights a bonfire to dry out, and he notices that Tenma is very thoughtful and thinks that she is going to talk to him about her feelings. But instead, Tenma tells him that when a boy likes a girl, he should only look at that girl, and that confirms Harima's suspicions. Tenma doesn't want him to be interested in other girls, even though he is only in love with her. Suddenly, Tenma starts sneezing and Harima gets an idea, but he is afraid that she will misunderstand him again, even though that is better than catching a cold, so he tells her that they should both take off their clothes. Incredibly, this is heard by Yakumo and Eri, who were in the other room and think that the worst is about to happen, and although they were about to avoid it, in the end, what Harima was referring to is using the curtains to cover themselves and dry their clothes with a bonfire. Then Eri and Yakumo blush for having thought lividly about the situation and also use dry curtains to cover themselves. Meanwhile, Tenma questions Harima about the girl he likes, and he doesn't dare tell her it's her. But soon Tenma sneezes again and Harima breaks the wooden wall to use it as firewood, but a piece of curtain sticks out of the hole and he pulls it to burn it, but by pulling it so much, Eri comes out of the hole grabbing the curtain that covers her body. Immediately, Harima returns Eri to her place and tells Tenma that the clothes are dry and they can return to the mountain. On the other hand, Eri and Yakumo are so embarrassed at being caught eavesdropping that they sneak into the cabin and ask Akira to give them dry clothes through the window. Chapter 17. The next day, they return to the city and the girls from the tea club go to see Itoko. Since she wants to show them something, it turns out that she took care of a giraffe and locked it in the school gym. Yakumo immediately connects with the giraffe and feeds it and asks to take it for a walk, but Ikoto tells them to wait until nighttime so as not to have problems with the authorities. At night, while they are walking in the park, the giraffe steps on some sunglasses and that reminds its teacher, so it runs to look for him around the city until it finds him talking to Tenma. It turns out that the giraffe is Harima's since the animals followed him when he was a fortune teller and its name is Pyotr. After that, the giraffe takes Harima with the other animals to the school gym. Later, a strong storm hits the city and Yakumo invites a runaway boy to spend the night at home, even though Tenma tells her that they should not trust a stranger. The next day, the boy leaves and promises to visit Yakumo one day. Meanwhile, Harima takes the animals to the mountain shrine because he refuses to let a zookeeper take care of them. But that plan soon goes out of control when a couple tells the news that there are wild animals on the loose. Harina doesn't know what to do and Yakumo, as an animal lover, wants to help him but she doesn't know how. Suddenly, the boy who once slept at Yakumo's house happily comes in to visit her, and it turns out that he is none other than Shuji, Harima's younger brother. Luckily, he has an idea of how to mislead the journalists hanging around the mountain shrine and asks them all to dress up as animals. The journalists immediately lament because they thought they had exclusive news, but as they were leaving, they ran into the real giraffe which had not been able to hide. Then the journalists Harima to hand over all the animals them with tranquilizer darts. Yakumo steps in to receive those darts, but Harima takes the rifle from the hunter. The animals, seeing that their beloved master is in trouble, begins to do pirouettes to show that they are docile, as if they were asking them not to harm Harima. Suddenly, Itoko arrives and says that she already made an agreement with the zoo and the animals will be transported there, which saddens Harima, and the animals do what they can to comfort him. Sometime later, a new term starts at school and some girls come back with new looks. Others now have a boyfriend and Tenma keeps wondering how changed Karasuma is, and she is shocked when she sees that he has a beard, although she doesn't know it's a fake beard. Later, she tries to convince herself that she likes guys with beards, and this is overheard by Harima, who thinks that she is talking about him. Chapter 18. Days later, Ishiju looks for Imidori since it is their turn to clean the gym's storage, and she wants to remind him that they had planned to have a date, but Imidori completely forgot. While they are cleaning, she tries to bring up the topic, but he remains oblivious and even asks Mikoto to go out in front of Ichiju. This bothers her, and finally he remembers their agreed date in the summer, and to not make her more angry, he asks her out. In the afternoon, she trains as usual and tells her coach that tomorrow is a special day, but he tells her that tomorrow she has an important match against Lala. The next day, Ichiju wants to tell Imidori that she wants to cancel their date, but Tenma finds out about the situation and convinces Ichiju to go to the date and she will replace her in her match against Lala. In the afternoon, Ichiju goes to the designated place where she should meet Imidori, but he arrives late because he was flirting with other girls. The date starts badly because Imidori doesn't even try to get along with Ichiju, so she opens her purse and takes out a bag, since Tenma gave her 3, saying that they would be of great help on her date. The first bag has 2 apples, which are quickly taken by Imidori, who puts them under his shirt and pretends that they are. The next bag has tickets to a children's movie, which makes Imidori happy. After the movie, Imidori comes out excited and accidentally hits Nobaru, and Ichiju opens the last bag hoping that it has help. But it's just a mask, so she puts it on and scares the bald guy away with her strength. Ichiju tries to lie that it wasn't her, but Imidori tells her that he knew all along. The next day, Imidori asks Mikoto to help him with his homework, and even though she thinks he is a bother, she helps him. Tenma watches them and realizes that they would make a good couple, but this conflicts with Ichiju, whom she helped have a good date with Imidori. Then, Tenma decides to ask Imidori who he likes, but she finds him flirting with another girl, and she puts on the mask and hits him for being, but is stopped by Ichiju before she hits him again, since she realized that Imidori didn't like her like that. Chapter 19. Days later, Ganji, the president of the class council of boys, calls a meeting to tell them something important. It turns out that Yoko, the art teacher, chose Miss Itoko as her muse for a nudist painting. The main generals of this council are Imidori and Fuyuki, who will be in charge of getting photos of Itoko's painting. Tenma and her friends are speechless as they cannot believe that all of their male classmates are like this, although Hame, Karasuma, and Harima stand out for abstaining from belonging to that council. Although soon Hime and Harima are tempted because they hear Yoko asking Yakumo and Tenma for help, and now they also want to know where Miss Yoko's artistic exhibition will be. The days go by and the Boys' Council has already obtained the address of the gallery that will exhibit Miss Yoko's work, and the information is secretly shared, and not only that, the gallery would sell photos of the paintings. So Hime and Harima decide to be the first to buy the photos so no one sees their girls without clothes. Days later, all the boys from the school run to the gallery and are disappointed when they see that the paintings were made with cubism techniques, while Yakumo and Tenma are only receptionists. Days later, Sarah asks Yakumo for a special favor. It turns out that she helps in an orphanage, and they want to promote the church as a good place to get married, so she asks her to dress up as a bride and she will get someone to dress up as a groom. Unfortunately for Yakumo, the chosen one is Hime, but this news reaches Harima, who thinks that the bride is Tenma, so he runs to avoid the supposed wedding. Hime gets angry because he won't let him ruin their special moment, so he and Harima start fighting seriously. But they are interrupted by Sarah telling them that she got a replacement for Hime, while Harima breathes a sigh of relief because the bride is Yakumo and not Tenma. The next day, it is announced that there will be a meteor shower and the girls look forward to the night to make their wishes, but in the afternoon it starts to rain and Tenma gives up and decides to sleep. Later, the rain stops and the meteor shower begins. Yakumo tries to wake up her sister, but it is impossible, and she asks the meteors for her sister's happiness. Chapter 20 days later, Tenma and her friends were playing when Eri accidentally cuts Harima's beard while he is sleeping. The girls know that he loves his beard, so they make up a lot of excuses so that he doesn't wake up. But when he wakes up, he goes to the roof to mourn his beard, and Eri forces herself to go up to apologize, and since Harima feels a great loss for his beard, he tells her that from now on, she will be his right hand and orders her to bring him some canned tea. To Harima's surprise, she runs to buy him one, and when he asks for canned tea from a specific store, she orders it by delivery. Then Harima senses the disparity of wealth and tells her that she can leave, but that makes Eri sad because she couldn't apologize well. At that moment, Tenma and Mikoto arrive and Eri asks them if they prefer boys with beards or without beards, and the two answer that they prefer boys without beards. At the speed of light, Harima shaves off his beard and the problem is forgotten, but not completely, since Eri shaves the top of his head as punishment for wanting to make her his right hand. In the afternoon, Harima goes to see his editor with a new teenage romance manga, and the editor asks him to have a friend read it to polish it. The problem is that Harima has no friends, so he goes to a cafeteria to drink iced tea while thinking of a solution. But suddenly, he sees a famous wrestler and runs to ask him for an autograph, leaving his manuscript forgotten on the table. When he returns, he finds Yakumo dressed as a waitress about to read it, and that gives him the idea that she is the one to reading his work. When Yakumo finishes reading it, she says that it was an interesting novel, but the protagonist was very violent and selfish. Harima deduces that she didn't like the story, but on the contrary, Yakumo confesses that she likes those types of boys and wishes that he could find someone he can trust. That gives Harima an idea, and he tells her that he will bring her a better manuscript next time, and as payment, he gives her the autograph he got. Upon arriving home, Yakumo gives the autograph to Tenma, who jumps with happiness. The next day, Hane looks everywhere for Harima, and finds him on the roof talking to Yakumo about kisses, which baffles him and he flees before they see him. It turns out that Harima worked all night on his new manuscript and Yakumo was giving him advice on how to improve the scenes. Meanwhile, a new student is transferred to the class 2D. She is Lala, the girl who Ichiju should have faced, but because of her date with Imidori, Tenma had to replace her. Chapter 21. 2 days later, Mikoto tracks down Hanang and finds him doing extreme training in the mountains. She asks him to come home because his parents are worried. When he returns to the city, he hears some girls talking about Harima. According to them, he is a hero because he saved them from some members in the alley. Then Hamai runs to meet Harima because he believes that he hired those members to assault girls and then save them. And that's probably why Yakumo is his friend now. But when he arrives at the alley, he meets a blonde foreigner. He is Harry Mackenzie, who is temperamental, and soon they start fighting and everything goes downhill when Yakumo and Harima show up for their regular manuscript review date. So Harima joins the fight and everything is a mess until his beret falls off and part of his bald head is revealed. The next day, Lala tries to be friends with Ichiju and goes to her classroom to eat with her, but she does not have good social skills and begins to attack Imidori for being and then Tenma, since both of them confronted each other in the past and Lala thinks that Tenma was making fun of her for the way she fights. Then Mikoto stops Lala but does not accept her challenge and Lala calls her a coward. Suddenly, Harry and the representative of Class 2D enter and challenge Class 2C to define who is the best second-year class at the school athletic meet. Hamai gets angry because that was his idea, but they still accept the challenge and many students feel motivated to beat Class 2D. After that, Tenma and the girls go to find Harima at the infirmary since he usually hides there since he is half bald and want Eri to apologize to him for balding him, and the members of the male council of Class 2C pretend to be hurt to go to the infirmary with her. Since the new nurse is pretty, but they did not expect to find Harima being hugged by the nurse, who turns out to be Ta. And not only the students are enthralled by her, the teachers too, causing fights between them, so the homeroom teacher of Class 2C decides to join the fight against Class 2D. Chapter 22. The school athletic meet begins and Class 2C and 2C are relentless when it comes to competing. Even Harima does his best, although it is because he has to team up with Tenma. After many games, Class 2C beats Class 2D by just 1 point, and glory will be defined by the cavalry battle, a game where 4 students must work as a team and remove as many headbands as possible. Eri is worried because it is her turn to ride Harima, but Tenma wishes them good luck, and that motivates Harima to give his best, even though to do so he must obey Eri. The cavalry battle begins, and as expected, it is brutal. But there are 3 teams that stand out: Lala and Harry, Ichiju and Hame, Mikoto and Asu. But those from Class 2A and 2B do not plan to let each other be trampled and try to defend themselves by forming human pyramids and walls of fat boys. But they are not worthy opponents for Ichiju and Mikoto, who knock them down and take off their headbands. On the other hand, Harima also does a good job protecting Eri, even though she is unbearable. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake. The giant student from Class 2D prepares to attack and knocks down everyone in his path. The first to be attacked is Tenma, and that infuriates Harima so much that he runs towards the giant and kicks him with all the strength he has. But that's not enough, so he and Eri kick him together and the giant staggers and falls, but not before taking Harima's beret, and he can't stop thinking about how his student life is over now that everyone will see his baldness. But Eri sacrifices herself and puts the beret back on him before everyone sees him, and she falls to the ground. Not only Ichiju and Mikoto are left, but soon Mikoto is attacked by Lala, and although Imidori saves her first, her team trips over him and Lala takes Mikoto headband. The last hope of Class 2C is Ichiju and Hame, who face Lala and Harry. Lala tries to kick Ichiju, but Hame throws her into the air and Lala misses, so Harry kicks Hame, but his abs are made of steel and feels no pain. Finally, Ichiju makes a pro wrestler move against Lala without noticing it and throws her to the ground, thus winning the battle. Chapter 23. After the cavalry battle, many students go to the infirmary and Tai heals them all, but she still has one more student left, Eri. The blonde says that she just needs a cold compress and she does not allow herself to be checked by the nurse since she is more interested in asking her about her relationship with Harima, and Tai tells her that their relationship was like a host and her guest, and she asks Eri if she is jealous. That makes her uncomfortable and she prefers to leave. Later, the second-year girls prepare for the relay race and Eri doesn't tell anyone about her injured leg. Meanwhile, the boys try to convince Harima to join the boys' relay race, but he is more interested in feeding Napoleon, his pig. After that, the girls' relay race begins and the 2C girls have a big advantage thanks to Mikoto. But when it is Eri's turn, she runs slowly since her leg hurts a lot and she ends up falling. Then Miss Ta bandages her injured leg and goes to tell Harima what happened, who tries not to feel so guilty since he assumes that Eri hurt her leg when she tried to keep his beret on to hide his baldness, so he decides to win the boys' relay race in her honor and puts his jacket on her shoulders before leaving. The race begins and Class 2C is at a disadvantage since Imanori rolls instead of runs and everything depends on Hame and Harima. Fortunately, Hame runs as if a demon possesses him and Harima runs at high speed, although he keeps worrying about his beret that is about to fall off. But at the last moment, he decides to run faster and win. Unfortunately, his beret falls off at the finish line. At night, the students dance in pairs around the bonfire, forgetting their fights about the competition. Even Eri goes to find Harima and invites him to dance, although she does clumsily because her leg still hurts. While they dance, everyone looks at them in disbelief. It is really rare to see the delinquent boy and the rich girl from school are dancing together. Chapter 24. On Monday, Class 2C vibrates with the rumor about Harima and Eri. They think that they are already a couple. Eri suspected that something like this was going to happen, so she decided to not go to school, while Harima hits anyone who does jokes about that rumor. The problem is that Tenma also thinks that they would make a nice couple, so she tells Harima that she will support him when he decides to confess his feelings to Eri, and that leaves him devastated, because that means that she never saw him with different eyes. Meanwhile, Eri sees that the jacket that Harima gave her is torn and decides to sew it in gratitude and go to school to give it to him. But since the classroom is empty, she leaves it on Harima's desk. On the other hand, Harima hides in the tea club and babbles to Yakumo that his name is ruined, and on top of that, he forgot his backpack on his desk and Yakumo decides to go look for it. She enters the classroom and sees Harima's jacket with his name wrongly stitched on it and thinks that's what he meant when he said his name was ruined, so she decides to sew it right. On the other hand, Eri goes to the tea club looking for Akira and sees Yakumo sewing Harima's jacket and gets angry since Yakumo is sewing her poorly work. Later, the girls go to the cafe where Yakumo works and Eri is quite nasty to her and tells everyone that Yakumo and Harima are seeing each other romantically. That surprises Tenma, and she asks Yakumo, and the poor girl can't deny that she and Harima are seeing each other, but in fact they meet secretly to review his manga. While Harima listens to everything and thinks that he cannot stay in Japan, he must leave. At night, Tenma is so happy for her sister that she cooks dinner, and although Yakumo tries to explain that she and Harima have nothing romantic, Tenma doesn't listen and concentrates on practicing how to make a birthday cake for Karasuma. Meanwhile, Harima has decided to leave Japan forever and embarks on a ship where the crew is not very friendly, so they send him to clean the deck so he can meet the boss. The boss is a large, grumpy sailor who advises Harima to be careful of the approaching storm. Later, the crew laughs at Harima and his manga and begins to beat him and to pierce his right hand with a harpoon. Fortunately, the ship's captain stops them. Chapter 25. Suddenly, the storm hits the ship and the entire crew goes on deck and Uteni falls into the ocean. They already give up on him, but Harima ties a rope around his waist and jumps in to look for him. Unfortunately, he forgot to tie the rope to the ship, so the captain grabs the other end of the rope, and with the help of the other sailors, they manage to get Harina and Utani out of the water. When Harima wakes up, the captain takes him to his cabin to talk to him alone and ask him about his manga, and when Harima tells him that it is just a hobby, the captain hits him and tells him that drawing is not just a hobby, it is a passion, and he believes that he is using the wrong pen. Finally, he gives him some advice about his life and tells him that they will take him to shore since his dream is not on the ship. When saying goodbye, the captain gives him a gift, a pen. Meanwhile, Tenma continues practicing how to make a birthday cake, but keeps failing, so Yakumo advises her to think about the gift she will give to Karasuma. That gives Tenma an idea. She would ask Harima for advice, so she calls him and asks him to go shopping with her tomorrow. The next day, Tenma tells Harima that she wants to buy a gift for the boy she loves, and that breaks Harima's heart, but she still accompanies her to Tokyo to buy 2 gifts for Karasuma. While they walk, he tries to compliment her, but she is so oblivious that she doesn't notice it. After that, Tenma asks him what he would like as a gift from a girlfriend, and he says clothes. So first they go to a clothing store and Tenma tries on several shirts on Harima and chooses one. Later, she asks him for his opinion again, and this time Harima decides to be mean and advises her to buy a ceramic bear. Finally, they go to have something to drink and Tenma surprises Harima by giving her the shirt that she chose first in gratitude for accompanying her today. Harima feels guilty and tells her that she should return that ugly ceramic bear and make a handmade gift. Any boy will like it, and if Karasuma doesn't like it, he will hit him in her honor. Later, they return by train and Tenma falls asleep on his shoulder, making Harima cry, and he wishes that this trip will never end. The next day, Harima concentrates on his work again and realizes that his deadline is tomorrow, which leads him to draw like crazy and ask Yakumo for help. When she arrives, she is surprised to see Missy Toko, and Harima explains that she is his cousin. The more they work, Yakumo realizes that the protagonists are Tenma and Harima, and he fervently denies it, and when she asks him if he is in love with her sister, he panics and accuses her of being able to read minds, and she says that she can only read the feelings of others but not his. He does not believe her and tries to empty his head, even though he can only think about Tenma. Then he starts meditating to clear his mind, and she reminds him that they have work to do, and the two continue their task. Meanwhile, Tenma goes to the music room to talk to Karasuma, but she finds him practicing with his guitar, and when she tries to play, she cuts her finger, so he puts it in his mouth to heal her, which causes her to faint. At night, Karasuma takes Tenma home on his back, and when she wakes up, she says she wants to give him a gift, but he says he has no time left and must leave. Chapter 26. Meanwhile, Harima and Yakumo work non-stop on his story, where Karasuma is an alien who came to survey planet Earth and inserted himself into Tenma's memories, making her believe that he saved her from those long ago. Harima tries to stop him because he knows that Tenma loves him, but Karasuma insists on returning to his planet, and after fighting, he erases their memories. When Tenma and Harima wake up, she is now in love with Harima, and when they are about to kiss, Harima puts an end to his manga. Finally, he gets on his motorcycle and drives quickly through the city to the publishing house, but he goes so fast that he crashes into Ari's limousine. He is very hurt and asks her to hand over his work for him, since he is really important. Then Nakamura, Ari's butler, hands over Harima's work. Meanwhile, at Tenma's house, she can't stop crying because she thinks Karasuma will soon transfer to another school, and Yakumo advises her to give him her gift. The next day, Tenma falls asleep in class and dreams that she looks for Karasuma everywhere and can't find him, and when she looks for him in a shrine, she collides with a cat, and they change bodies while the cat in her body leaves with Harima on a date. Tenma does not realize that she is a cat and continues looking for Karasuma until she finds him and gifts him a sardine, and he eats it. To her surprise, Karasuma knows that the cat is Tenma and confesses his love for her. Sadly, Tenma wakes up from her dream and sees Harima meowing at her and wonders how true her dream was. After that, Tenma goes in search of Karasuma and gives him her birthday gift, some sardine skewers, which are quickly eaten by him because they are his favorite dish. According to Tenma's dream, Karasuma confesses his feelings after eating the sardine, but instead, Karasuma tells her that his birthday was the day before yesterday, leaving Tenma stunned and speechless. OVA 1. Days later, several of the students remember how they started their first day of school. Yashirayama remembers that he was bullied in middle school, so he studied hard and managed to enter the city's high school, and he thought he would rule the school until he realized that Harima was in this high school too, and he became a normal student. On the other hand, Yakumo remembers how she met her best friend Sarah. It turns out that she always falls asleep in different places like the park bench or her classroom, which causes her to not get to buy groceries, although Tenma takes care of that when she knows that her sister fell asleep somewhere. The problem is that Yakumo doesn't have friends because she can sense other people's feelings, and they are thunderous, although she didn't realize that Sarah did notice her strangeness of taking a nap in inappropriate places. One day, the kitten that she chases so much was being attacked by a dog and she saves it, but no classmate jumped to help her. Only Sarah, as she scared the dog away and then cried from fright. From that moment on, she and Sarah became friends, and Yakumo finally had someone to watch over her unexpected naps. On the other hand, Tenma remembers how she managed to get the seat next to Karasuma. It was all thanks to Nishimoto. He had gotten the seat in front of Karasuma, while she got the special seat in front of the teacher. But since Nishimoto wanted that seat to be able to admire Miss Itoko's body, he changed the seat to Tenma. One afternoon, while Yakumo was drawing a self-portrait, she realizes that she is unable to draw an accurate expression, and Miss Yoko tells her that she can stay as long as she wants. Suddenly alone, Tenma feels a presence. A ghost has come to visit her. The little girl tells her that her body has been frozen in time for many years, and since she never grew up, she doesn't know what it's like to like a boy, so she asks Yakumo if she dislikes boys because she can read their feelings. Yakumo says that she doesn't dislike boys because she can read their feelings and knows that most of them are good boys, but she still hasn't found the boy she likes, and the ghost realizes that Yakumo wants to fall in love with someone and promises to come back to visit her when that happens. When she gets home, she finds Tenma talking to another ghost, and Tenma laughingly says that she likes boys a lot. Days later, the girls go to hot springs and complain that all the boys are like apes in mating season. Unfortunately, they are right, because the boys try to spy on them from the other side. Meanwhile, Akira and Yakumo, who took another train to get to the hot springs, arrive late, and Akira receives a secret call from Italy entrusting her with a job that she must do quickly. OVA 2, on weekend, while Ichoju and Lala work at the burger restaurant, Imadru cuts in line and asks Lala to smile, which makes Lala so angry that she beats him to a pulp. At the end of their shift, their boss gives Lala a bag of hamburgers and asks her to smile more at customers like Ichiju. On the way home, Ichiju tries to cheer up Lala, but she remains serious. They run into Kosuke, Ichiju's brother, and since she knows that her brother is a big mouth, she takes him away. Lala continues walking alone and comes across a little dog that is chasing her bag, so she sits in a park and feeds him. The dog is so cute that she laughs for the first time in a long time. This is seen by Imadori, who the next day takes his dog to the burger restaurant and asks Lala to smile, but she beats him to a pulp again. On the other hand, Tenma and Yakumo visit the museum and see cave paintings where they imagine what prehistoric Japan was like. It turns out that in the prehistoric era, all the ancestors of Class 2C were the same as their descendants. They all lived together and worked together, except Harima, who seemed like an outcast. One day, Hame was almost burned because he was fainted after facing a giant mammoth. Since they had no food, they set out to hunt the mammoth, but they don't know how to hunt it. Then Harima stops drawing Tenma in the cave and tells them that they could use the hard stones as arrowheads on sticks and thus hunt the mammoths. Although most people do not like Harima, everyone listens to him, and the men set off to battle against the mammoth. Although it is so big that they cannot defeat it, only hurt it. Fortunately, Ichiju and Lala were part of the plan and managed to trip the mammoth with a rope, and the other men hunt the mammoth. At night, everyone eats the roasted mammoth on the big bonfire, except Harima, who is still drawing Tenma, who interrupting him because she brings him a mammoth nose, which makes him very happy. After that, Yakumo goes to Harima's house to help him with one of the many manuscripts that he draws, but the power goes out and they have to work by candlelight. This helps Harima a lot since he did not know how to draw the protagonist's face in the light of the campfire in a cave. He stares at Yakumo while she reads the dialogue of his drawings and realizes that she and Tenma look a lot alike. Yakumo realizes that he is staring at her, but then thinks that it is her imagination, although the questions of the ghosts continue to haunt her mind. Days later, Harima receives a note about having won an award, and he thinks it's about his manga, which fills him with so much happiness that he runs around the school looking for Tenma to confess his feelings. But when he reaches the roof, he hears Tenma scolding her sister, since Yakumo told her that she was at Sarah's house when in reality she was at Itoko's house helping Harima. Then Harima interrupts her scolding and tries to tell her that they didn't do anything indecent, but Tenma misinterprets everything and thinks that Harima is in love with Yakumo and wishes them happiness. After that, Tenma goes to the music room and is delighted with the new costumes of Karasuma's musical group, although her imagination runs wild and she imagines him and the others being super famous idols, and she feels less because she's good at nothing. So Karasuma tells her that she will find something soon and gives her a turtle named Kamakichi. Later at home, Harima is disappointed because the prize is a video camera and was actually from a raffle in which Itoko used his name. Meanwhile, Tenma can't stop thinking about what Kamakichi means, and she goes crazy thinking about theories until she comes to the conclusion that Karasuma wants her to be the Sleeping Beauty in the cultural festival play. The next day, Tenma wakes up excited and tells Tenma to prepare an extra lunchbox and take it to her classroom later. At school, there are strong rumors that Harima left Eri for Yakumo, and this reaches the ears of Hame, who heartbrokenly tries to hit Harima, but his strength seems to have abandoned him and his punches don't even tickle Harima. And everything goes downhill when Yakumo takes the lunchbox to her sister, but instead Tenma gives that lunchbox to Harima, telling him that Yakumo prepared it exclusively for him, and inside it, there's a heart in the rice. And he is left in the same state as Hame when Tenma gives him his approval to go out with her sister. Suddenly, those from Class 2D say that Class 2C's victory in the athletic meet does not count, and that the true winner will be defined at the cultural festival. On the other hand, the Council of Boys has a secret meeting where they review their database and update the girls who need to pay attention in this new term. They are Megumi, Yuki, Mei, Kozu, and of course Miss Itoko, who is still the most beautiful teacher in the school, but suddenly, the database is deleted in real time. It turns out that Itoko hacked them and only left them a photo of Harima in the bathroom. Chapter 2. The next day, Mei and Yuki try to organize Class 2C since Hame is still heartbroken. The class is divided, some want a maid cafe, while others want to play, and even the boys on the council want a girls' swimsuit fight, so everything will be decided by vote. Unfortunately, the vote leaves the maid cafe and the play tied, while the swimsuit wrestling only had 3 votes. Everything is a disaster, so Akira tries to solve it and brings Harima back to life, telling him that if he votes in favor of the play, he and Tenma will be the protagonists, while Hame is told that if he votes for the maid cafe, Class 2C will ask the tea club for help. Immediately, the two stand up and give their votes. Although it is still a tie, therefore, Akira claims to have a solution. She suggests a night survival game. At night, the two teams prepare as if they were going to war. The two groups are led by Hame and Harima. The competition is so high that even the class couple, Madoka and Shijo, are on different teams and will not hesitate to attack each other. Then Hame explains his strategy to defeat the team play to steal their flag, and they all attack. But Harima is worth more than 10 students combined and corners them. Meanwhile, the swimsuit wrestling team prefers to hide in the lockers to emerge victorious without facing anyone. Unfortunately, that does not last long because when they try to move to another hiding place, they are attacked by the other teams and are disqualified. On the other hand, Karasuma and Shiju's band continues practicing their songs and musicalize the tough battles that take place on the other floors. The battles are so brutal that Madoka and Shigeo turn on each other despite being an adorable couple. Suddenly, Karasuma's band finds out that there is no longer room for them at the cultural festival, and they decide to join the fight on the floors below. Meanwhile, the two teams continue to battle, and it seems that Eri has captured a flag for the play team, so she is followed by 2 students, but it was all a trap. Her butler Nakamura has joined the fray. Chapter 3. The butler Nakamura is ready to get rid of those from the team cafe, but a sniper forces him to hide, and it is none other than Itoko. She saw that those from the team cafe were at a disadvantage and decided to help them. Meanwhile, Mikoto finds an empty room and thinks that her team has been eliminated, and she is right. At that moment, Yuki appears and tells her that the band team has joined the fight, and when she is about to eliminate her from the game, Hame appears and saves her. Then Yuki remembers the time Hame took care of her when her glasses broke. He was so kind that he took her on his bike to her house. Thanks to that past kindness, she tells them that the band team is about to take the flags, and if they want to recover, they have to eliminate her. Hame refuses to do so, so Mikoto takes care of the situation and eliminates her. After that, Hame and Mikoto inform Team Cafe over the headphones about the situation with the band team, but it is too late. Karasuma eliminates them before they can defend themselves. Then he quickly advances towards the room where Team Play hid their flag, and he quickly gets rid of Eri, and the protection of the flag is left in Tenma's hands. On the other hand, Mikoto and Hame get rid of the rest of the team band but are found by Harima. The main strategist of Team Play has been at the right time to attack, so he eliminates Mikoto, awakening Hame's fury. Back to Karasuma and Tenma's duel. He tells her that he will not eliminate her because he never agreed to participate in tonight's fight. It seems unfair to him that the team band has snuck in, but he still joined his band because it's not easy to sit idly by when a dream is taken away from you. Then Tenma decides to eliminate herself from the game, but Karasuma stops her and eliminates himself before she does. That's too much for Tenma, so she eliminates herself anyway. Meanwhile, on the roof, the final battle is about to take place. Harima vs Hame, the winner will determine what they will do at the school festival. The fight is so brutal and action-packed that it would put any Hollywood movie to shame, since not only a school activity is disputed, but also Yakumo's love. Hamai wants to know if Harima really loves her, and that disconcerts him a little, so he tells him to decide everything in one last attack, a Regency-style duel. They both walk with their backs to each other, and after 10 steps, both of them are supposed to, but only Harima falls to the ground. Hamai runs to hug him and asks him why he didn't. Harima says that he knows the pain he is feeling regarding the girl he loves because he feels the same, and that makes Hamai understand that Harima is in love with someone else. Meanwhile, in a dark room, Akira records everything that has been happening and edits it as if it were a movie. The next day, the 2C students are scolded for having vandalized the school during the night, so they are told that they can do the 3 things as long as they stop fighting among themselves. Later, Hamai talks to his classmates and says that they have to do their best so that the band concert, the coffee shop, and the play go well at the school festival, although no one takes him seriously because many heard his heartbreaking scream from last night when Mikoto was eliminated. Chapter 4. The next day, Yuki and Mei ask their classmates to write scripts for the play, and then they will combine all the ideas into one. Later, they start reading the scripts, and some are more bizarre than others, ranging from Harima and Hamai having a secret love affair to Ichiju wanting to destroy Mikoto's ballet career, to how Eri could lose her fortune. Yuki and Mei don't know how to combine the scripts, and it occurs to them to ask Akira for help since she is smarter, and after much thought, she accepts. That night, Tenma sees Yakumo looking thoughtful and says that she will help her with Harima, although her sister does not understand what Tenma means. The next day, Tenma asks Eri for help since she's more expert on boys and asks her to get all the information she can from Harima about his taste in girls. Then Eri starts to question Harima with the excuse of needing information for the coffee shop, and he answers without thinking too much until Eri asks him what kind of hairstyle he likes on girls. That question makes Harima suspicious since he can see Tenma listening to the conversation and says that he likes girls who comb their hair up on the sides. But the problem is that Tenma and Eri have hair like that, so the blonde turns red thinking that Harima likes her, and everything goes downhill when Yakumo enters the ROM with her hair tied to the sides, so Tenma thinks that Harima really likes her sister. After that, everyone goes to relax in a bathhouse, and some girls ask Eri if she has feelings for Harima since she seemed very natural when talking to him, but soon they hear him fighting with another guy, and she says she hates him. Later, they return to school as the preparations for the school festival must continue, and this time is the boys' turn to try the rice balls that the girls made in the afternoon. Harima is determined to find Tenma's and eat it, so he chooses the one that looks the worst, and when he grabs it, falls apart on his fingers, and the taste of it is not pleasant at all. So he decides to eat one that tastes better to wash away the bad taste in his mouth and chooses a perfectly cooked square of rice, but is only pleasing to the eye. The taste is 100% worse than the previous rice ball, and that makes him a little happy, since that means that Tenma is not the worst cook in the class. Later, after cleaning everything, Eri approaches Harima and gives him her rice balls, surprising him, since they are the poorly made rice balls. After that, Tenma also approaches him and gives him her perfectly made rice squares, and he forces himself to eat them because they were made by Tenma, which leaves him knocked out by the horrible taste of it. Chapter 5. Days later, the school festival finally begins, and classroom 2C is the most popular since they have a coffee shop where clients can choose girls to talk to, and not only that, the classroom is harmonized with music from the band by Karasuma. Unfortunately, Tenma is not chosen by anyone, and that makes her sad, so she wants to leave, but Akira comforts her and tells her that she's an introvert, but she has something special inside her. She just has to find it, and that special something is being childish. So she puts on a superhero mask and becomes the girl most requested by children. But the happiness doesn't last long since the clients start to stop coming, and Hamei is going to find out why everyone is going to the tea club, although he knows that he will also be trapped there. It turns out that the girls from the tea club organize a cosplay cafe where Atoko is dressed as a maid and Yakumo as a police officer, so Hamei dresses up as a detective and starts pretending that they are an anti-crime couple. Meanwhile, Harima has to wash the dishes to pay for coffee at the tea club, and when Atoko tells him that's enough, she sends him to a manga room where Yakumo is waiting for him. This time, she's the mangaka and he is her assistant, so she takes the opportunity to ask him not to give up on his dream. Unfortunately, their meeting is short because Hamei won't stop asking Yakumo. So Harima decides to call the publishing house, and his boss tells him that Nakamura the butler won the award, but he made sure to mention his name. That makes him happy and call Yakumo to tell her about it, and she decides to make him a cake. On the other hand, the boys in classroom 2C are very sad because they have 0 clients and they decide to dress in elegant suits to attract them, but it doesn't work. So the girls bring them snacks to cheer them up and prepare for Karasuma's late party. Later, Tenma goes to the tea club to look for the 2 cakes that she asked her sister in the morning, and she finds her decorating one more for Harima. So Tenma takes the cakes and leaves one of them outside the classroom, which makes Harima curious, but his luck is the worst and he slips on the cake, and now only MA can be read. He thinks that Tenma heard the good news about him and decided to give him a treat, so he writes his name with liquid chocolate. After that, everyone gathers in the classroom and starts celebrating Karasuma's belated birthday. And when Tenma brings the cake, Harima realizes his mistake and jumps to destroy the cake before everyone sees his name on it. But when he sees the cake on the floor, he doesn't understand why Yashidayama's name is on the cake, and it turns out that he won the men's sumo match and Tenma had brought him a cake too. But Tenma brings a brand new cake and tells him that she heard the good news about him from Yakumo, which makes him so happy that he tearfully eats the cake. Finally, Tenma goes to look for the cake that she left outside the Karasuma's, but when she opens the box, she doesn't understand why it says Harima instead of Karasuma, so she decides to cut Hari's part and leave only the part of the cake that says MA. She gives it to Karasuma crying, and later she doesn't stop feeling sad about what happened, but Karasuma thanks her for her efforts and offers to take her home. On the other hand, Harima's brother Shuji is at the school festival because according to him he wants to see those from class 2C, but in reality he wants to see Yakumo, which makes his friend Mayo sad since she likes him, so the two go their separate ways. On her way, she is found by Hame and Yakumo, who think she's a lost girl, and when she sees that Mayo has her torn sweater, she decides to help her. Alone, Mayo asks Yakumo what to do when the boy you like doesn't even look at you, and she says that the main thing would be to smile. Later, Mayo is found by Shuji, who was looking for her everywhere worried about her, and she smiles at him and says that she was looking for her brother Nobaru. Chapter 6. The next day is the big play in the classroom 2C, and everyone at school is looking forward to it since it is said that they worked very hard for it. While everyone is getting dressed, Harima gives his new project to Yakumo so she can read it, since he drew more than 120 pages in one night, so he's going to sleep in the bed behind the scene. Then the entire theater fills up, and the girls who will be princes in search of saving Mikoto, the sleeping princess, appear dressed spectacularly. The play begins with the 6 princes making a promise to save the princess, but soon they encounter the sumo trio. But Eri convinces them to let them pass without fighting, then they come across a wall of roses that do not stop growing, until Eri casts a spell with her sword. The audience is totally captivated by the play, while behind the scenes, Yakumo tries to wake up Harima as the princess bed scene approaches. Unfortunately, she can't wake him up and the bed is lifted in the set. Everyone is upset when they don't see Mikoto dressed as a princess. What no one knows is that a teacher punished her because he thought she was wearing a princess dress for a cosplay cafe when that was yesterday. Those from 2C panic, but Togo says that on Broadway it is very normal to use men and women's roles, so he congratulates them. The play continues, and the 6 princes wonder how to defeat the evil witch who has the princess asleep, and the fairy godmothers tell her that they must prove their wisdom by answering a question. But Tenma goes ahead and answers without thinking, which makes her the fairy godmothers leave without giving them the sword that will defeat the witch. Then the princes must defeat all the enemies who attack them without the sacred sword, and only Eri manages to survive. At that moment, Harima wakes up and realizes that he is in the play and doesn't know what to do because there is someone else in bed with him. Then Prince Eri approaches the bed and Harima closes the curtains of the bed, but she still sees Yakumo and cruelly tells her that she is ruining the play. But Yakumo is not intimidated and improvises by saying that she is the evil witch and asks Prince Eri to let Princess Harima sleep because she is very tired. The public does not understand the twist that they support the witch Yakumo because she is prettier. That angers Eri and a battle between the two begins. At first it seems fake, but the blows are not. Eri becomes angrier and tells Yakumo to stop getting in her way with Harima. But Yakumo continues professionally in her role and says that she has been with Princess Harima for more than 100 years, and that is something that Eri will not be able to erase. And finally, Yakumo whispers something to her that leaves Eri stunned, and she leaves, abandoning the play. The audience is left speechless because the witch won the battle, and now they chant that they want a kiss between the witch and the princess. Even Tenma revives her character and tells her sister to kiss Harima. Yakumo approaches Harima and tells him that she will hide the kiss with her hat. But the kiss does not happen, since Akira enters like a lady spy from the sky and gives Harima a small kiss on the nose, ending the play. Behind the scenes, Eri is still angry at Yakumo for her chance to kiss Harima, and Akira says that it was just a peck on the nose and Eri shouldn't be so upset. After that, the school principal gives a boring speech congratulating everyone for holding a successful school festival, but the speech is interrupted when Karasuma's band takes his place and starts playing. Little by little, the students begin to dance as couples, and Hamae gets Aso to dance with her, so she can have her princess moment. On the other hand, Tenma asks Yakumo to apologize to Eri. Fortunately, Eri is no longer angry and offers to dance with Yakumo, surprising everyone, and the blonde takes the opportunity to ask if she is seeing Harima, and Yakumo tells her that that is true, but not romantically, which leaves Eri thoughtful. Meanwhile, Harima asks them from the roof to let him go since they have him crucified as punishment for almost ruining the play. Chapter 7. Weeks later, Akira organizes an outing to see the autumn leaves fall. They also invite Hime and Harima to carry the heavy things, and they happily accept. Hime doesn't understand why his backpack is so heavier, and it turns out that he was carrying Imidori all this time. When they arrive at a nice place to eat, Tenma realizes that she only brought rice and forgot the other meals, so she and Eri offer to make their famous rice balls, but Harima stops them. He offers to cook something for everyone, and Hime butts in and says the same thing, which causes great tension between the two. But Akira intervenes and says that it is best to have a cook-off to determine who is the best. But Imidori also wants to participate, so he joins in, imagining a kiss from Mikoto as a prize if he manages to win. Then Akira starts the cook-off and tells them that they must look for their ingredients themselves, and the three boys run to supply themselves with whatever they find. Harima runs to the river and duels against a giant crab. Hime faces off against a wild boar, while Imidori falls asleep in a field of flowers. Later, Hime and Harima confidently cook their dishes, and Akira ends the cooking time, and the girls will be the judges. Out of nowhere, Imidori presents his dish, and it is exquisite, but is promptly disqualified by Akira because he used packaged food. Then it is Harima's turn, who presents her crab miso soup. The girls are fascinated with his dish, but out of nowhere, Itoko and Yoko appear and try the soup, saying that the ingredients are incorrectly arranged. Finally, Hime presents his wild boar stew. The girls also find it exquisite, but after the first bite, they say that it is murky because he forgot to remove the underskin from the meat. So Akira declares none the winner, and a helicopter lands bringing French food made by Eri's cook. Days later, the students of Class 2C begin to look for part-time jobs. Harima searches the newspaper for a part-time job as a helper in an anim house. On the other hand, Sarah and Aso help their boss, whom needs to leave in an emergency. They must run the restaurant even though Aso doesn't want to, but the customers start arriving before he can close the restaurant. On the other hand, Yakumo is informed that this weekend she will wear a rabbit outfit, and it is written on the poster that promotes the cafeteria. Later, Hime sees the sign for the cafe and his imagination runs wild thinking about what Yakumo will look like. But when he walks in, he sees her in a big fat bunny suit and thinks she's cute. In another part of the city, the men's council helps organize the video cassettes from their friend's store, but suddenly, they find a hidden door where it is said that the person who enters is not the same person ever again, even so they enter. Meanwhile, Ichiju and Lala work at a burger shop, and Imidori tries to convince Ichiju to sell him the children's menu, which makes Lala angry, and she starts beating him. On the other hand, Tenma works as a bakery assistant, and her job is to bag breads. But since she is the new one, they give her tons of breads, and she is soon inundated with it. Akira also works part-time, but her job is an unusual one. She used to work in a bookstore, but now she's a secret spy. At night, the students of Class 2C leave their jobs after a hard day. Harima barely manages to escape from the anim house by saying that the work of an animator is inhumane. Aso and Sarah finally finish serving the customers when their boss comes and says that the emergency wasn't that emergency after all. On the other hand, the men's council leaves the video club with their lives changed. They saw a whole series of sumo fights in swimsuits. On the way home, Tenma meets Yakumo and says that next time she will look for an easier job and near them and chases herd, and it is nothing more and nothing less than Akira on a motorcycle chasing a car, and in the end she throws a grenade at them. Chapter 8. Days later in PE class, the girls are delighted to see Megumi handle the basketball. She looks like a professional, but unfortunately the school does not have a women's basketball team, so her talent is wasted. Unlike Aso, who is captain of the men's basketball team and is almost a school sports star. Fortunately, there is someone who wants to change this situation. Satsuki, a girl passionate about basketball, wants to found the women's team and asks for help from Nurse Ta, who connects her with Aso to instruct her. Although he quickly realizes that Satsuki doesn't need him because she starts recruiting players like Megumi, Ichiju, and Mikoto, Tenma loves basketball, so she offers to be part of the team, and Lala joins immediately when she hears that Ichiju is part of the team. With Satsuki's help, after a week of training, the team seems well-oiled, although Tenma is generally benched. Before practice, Mikoto tells her friends that she decided to join the team because Satsuki is a girl who is passionate about basketball but receives a lot of criticism for her short height, while Tenma says that apparently Satsuki likes Aso. In practice, Tenma's theory seems to be confirmed because while Aso trains Mikoto and praises her tall stature, Satsuki stands between the two and shows them that with her short stature, she can beat Mikoto. After practice, the girls invite themselves to eat at the Aso restaurant, and Satsuki decides not to go with them, although she later appears and says that she decided to go on her own, not to follow them. After finishing eating, Mikoto takes a sleeping Satsuki to her house. The next day, Tenma is very excited about basketball practice, but Miss Ta tells her she needs more practice and assigns her a training program for slow starters while the team continues to get better and better. Even Imidori and Toguro offer to help them, but the girls easily dismiss them. Unfortunately, Tenma doesn't have the heart to tell Yakumo that she's not part of the team, so Yakumo continues giving her lots of lunchboxes for her and the team. Days later, Yakumo notices that her sister has started to gain weight, and it's because she eats all the lunchboxes alone, but she makes the excuse that it's some kind of training. One night, Tenma sits alone apart wondering when they will let her return to the team, and her prayers are answered. Tobito says that he's going to form the team of the rejected ones with Imidori and her and Harima because he heard about that idea and joined too. Chapter 9. The rejected team gets together in the afternoons to practice, and to no one's surprise, Yakumo joining the team to support her sister. Days later, Satsuki worries the team because it seems that she has lost her ability to shoot the hoop, so Miss Tai asks Aso to help her, but that makes her more nervous and she continues to fail miserably, and it does not help her self-esteem and Mikoto keep improving. Then she runs away crying, and Mikoto asks Aso to go comfort her, but he sends Lala. She asks her if she has problems at home, but Satsuki assures her that she is fine and begins to cry uncontrollably in her arms while Lala comforts her. In the afternoon, Aso talks to Tatsuki and asks her how she feels about their relationship, and she misunderstands him and thinks he is talking about her feelings and confesses that she loves him, which makes Aso uncomfortable because he was referring to how she felt with him being her coach. The next day, Tatsuki doesn't go to practice because she's still embarrassed, which makes the boys versus girls match difficult, so Yuki replaces her. Suddenly, a player interrupts the match with his speed. He is Togo and introduces his team, the Rebels, challenging them to a match. That lights Tae up, and she thinks that's what her team needs, a little competition. Tenma tells Mikoto that they are now enemies, while Lala becomes happy at the prospect of beating someone. The match begins with Imidori scoring quickly thanks to his air platform shoes, prompting Lala to take them off him. Quickly, Harima the ball from Mikoto and scores, earning Tenma's applause. Then Yakumo takes the ball and is about to pass it to Tenma, but Harima realizes that this is a bad idea, so he takes the ball himself and hits again. The girl team is being crushed by Togo's team, which angers Lala, and she goes out to find Satsuki, who is spying on them behind the door. Lala tells her that she realizes that Satsuka can't stop thinking about other things and asks her to focus on basketball, and that clears her mind, and they both return to the gym. The score is 102-32. It is a match almost impossible to reverse, but Satsuki has regained her ability, and she does not stop sinking triples, which quickly brings the girls' team to 108 was 119. Tomato's team calls a break, and Tenma says it's time to use the secret her. There are only 2 minutes left in the match, and Tenma's target is Lala. She does not stop following her, causing the tough Lala to make her spin with her strength every time she approaches. It is considered a foul by the referee. This seriously worries the girls' team because they no longer have replacements, but Miss Ta calls the last available player, Tenma. Harima gets angry because Tenma is their ace, but Tenma happily goes to the other team since she always wanted to play with them, and Togo applauds her for following her dream. The problem is that right now they are missing a player, and Aso offers to play with them, since he wants to face Mikoto and Satsuki. The match resumes, and the Togo team is winning 132-129, and the girls need a miracle to turn it around, so Mikoto and Satsuki try one last play, but it ends in a double point, therefore they lose the match. Togo congratulates them on their incredible comeback, but rules are rules, and now the court belongs to him and his team. But the team quickly dismantles because they only wanted to play once. At night, everyone goes to the Aso restaurant to celebrate the fantastic match, and Togo offers Tenma to join the 2B class because she would hit very well with them, which angers Harima, while Aso tries to convince Mikoto to continue playing basketball because she is very talented. After that, Imidori tries to kiss Mikoto as usual, which upsets Aso, and Satsuki realizes that he will never look at her the way he looks at Mikoto. Later, Lala comforts her, and Satsuki decides to step aside from and let Mikoto and Aso continue on their way to wherever they are going. Finally, Aso asks Mikoto not to give up basketball, and she promises him that she will think about it. When she arrives at the dojo, Hamaya was waiting for her to start practicing basketball with her. Chapter 10. Sometime later, it's time to start studying, which is a little difficult for Tenma because she only wants to eat desserts, although she shouldn't because she wants to lose weight. Then she asks her friends about their weight, and to her bad luck, they are all thinner, so she's content eating the dessert anyway. At the other table, Imidori jokes to Togo and Harima that he is the most muscular of the three, and that awakens the competitive mood of Togo, who wants to wrestle right now, while Harima is more focused on watching Tenma, who is trying to divide a cake into 3 equal pieces. The match between Togo and Imidori begins and ends in a second because Togo breaks his arm and is therefore declared the winner. Then Harima approaches the girls' table, divides the cake into 4 and eats 1 piece, leaving the cake in 3 equal pieces, which surprises them a lot. The next day, Harima is happy because Karasuma didn't go to class and he can go over to talk to Tenma, but she is more excited, telling the girls that Togo fed her from one of his lunchboxes and it was exquisite. Later, Harima and Hamai don't like this new friendship between a Tenma and a boy from 2D at all, so they go to talk to her, but they find Lala sitting on Tenma's desk with the same hairstyle At the same time, Tenma is in classroom 2D pretending to be Lala. So the teacher asks Lala to return to her classroom, but Togo intervenes and gets Lala transferred to classroom 2D for a brief moment. After that, Hame and Harima arrive acting like hyenas trying to get their cub back, which causes Harry and Togo to laugh at them and propose to decide Tenma's future and game of cards. But not only Tenma is bet, everyone in class 2C is too, and little by little, Harima and Hame are losing them. After many games, Harima decides to let Tenma do whatever she wants and wins the game. The next day, Tenma is in ceramics class and feels the ghostly presence of Karasuma behind her, guiding her to achieve a perfect bowl and many other things. Meanwhile, Akira and Eri have Hame and Harima as servants because they found out that they use the entire 2C class as a betting token, so to clear their names, they obey them in everything. So they agree to accompany the girls to eat curry, and it turns out that today is the curry speed eating contest, and the prize is a year of free curry. Hame and Harima decide to participate to give the girls the prize, but the curry is Indian, therefore it is very spicy. The competition begins and many give up after the first bite, but Harima and Hame continue eating until Hame passes out. Tenma is worried about Harima, but he insists that he's doing it for her, so he continues gobbling down a curry so spicy it's called magma. Unfortunately, Harima can't take it anymore and gives up, giving the winner to someone no one saw, Satsuki. Tenma cries a little guilty because she thinks that Harima overstepped his bounds on her behalf, but he tells her that it was nothing and he will try it next year, making her laugh and sharing a nice moment. Chapter 11. Days later, the school organizes a stew cookout for all the students, although each one has to bring the ingredients they think are necessary. Harima teams up with Sara, Yakumo, and Tenma, and to make him look good, he brought meat, which makes Tenma happy, and since she can't wait, she goes to eat the other team's stews. She approaches the stew of the team of Togo, Imadori, Hiju, and Lala, although their stew does not look appetizing at all because they all added very different ingredients. Still, everyone tries it, and Lala and Tenma praise its good taste while Ishiju and Togo decide to start again. Imadori can't help them because he still has a broken arm, and he plans to take revenge on them by putting the only shoelace left his sneakers that Lala took from him. When the stew is ready, Imadori viciously waits for one of them to eat the shoelace, but instead Togo wants to feed Imadori himself and feeds him the shoelace. Another one who tries to feed someone is Hame. He insists on feeding Yakumo, and she just wants him to leave her alone. On the other hand, Tenma and Harima enjoy their stew, and Napoleon the pig approaches them to spend time with them, which makes Tenma think of pork miso soup that scares Napoleon a lot, who runs out and saves Yakumo from Hame. At night, a small earthquake shakes the city. The next day, Nishimoto appears with bandages and a broken arm. It turns out that last night during the earthquake, he tried to save all the DVD boxes from his library, but the bookshelf ended up falling on him. So in the afternoon, he calls several of his friends from the council, boys, to take whatever DVDs they want before he gets rid of them. After he is left with a few, Hame becomes curious and enters Nishimoto's house, who shows him a DVD that he may like. The problem is that he likes it too much and confiscates all the DVDs, with the excuse that he would throw them in the trash. Hame carries the large bag of DVDs and is watched by everyone, although he tries to hide, until he meets Yakumo, who leaves in terror when she sees the indecent bag that Hame is carrying. Later, Hame goes to church and confesses to Sara, who is dressed as a nun, about his situation with Yakumo and the indecent bag. After that, another student also confesses to her, saying that tomorrow he will talk to his crush. The next day, Sara receives a love letter from another boy, which leaves her thoughtful because she doesn't know much about love, and besides, she is going to be a nun. In the afternoon, she attends the game of the boy who went to confession yesterday, and when he is about to score, another player intervenes and clears the play. When the game ends, the boy screams in agony and another girl leaves crying. In the afternoon, that boy returns to church and tells her that everything went wrong at the game, and he feels ashamed and even thinks about giving up on the girl he likes, but Sara tells him not to and wishes him luck. Chapter 12. One day, Tenma decides to get serious about school and goes to the library to study, but falls asleep instantly. In her dream, Tenma is a tall and smart, a girl who her friends ask for help when studying, and not only that, she is coveted by all the boys at school. Everyone wants to ask her out, even Harima declares his love, and that wakes her up. The one who is also sleeping is Harima, and dreams how Tenma declares her love for him. The next day, Tenma tells her friends that her birthday is tomorrow, but they will be busy that day, and Tenma complains, saying that her birthday is more important than a test. This is heard by Harima, who plans to celebrate Tenma's birthday so that she can celebrate him after tomorrow. So at night, Harima sneaks into a Toko's room, a magazine that has the steps to follow for a good date. The problem is that he must go through laser traps, dogs, but he still manages to get the magazine. The next day, he reads it carefully and begins to calculate how much it will cost to take Tenma to a good restaurant. But his calculations are interrupted by his brother. It turns out that today is Shujin's birthday, and he wants to spend it with him and Yakumo. But Harima misunderstands and calls Tenma. In the afternoon, Tenma appears with Akira, and Harima decides to be in charge of the outing. taking them to interesting places according to the magazine, since it is the birthday of the two most important people in his life. But he is so unlucky that the places are abandoned or closed by today, and he earns complaints from Shujin and Akira. Tenma's look is one of compassion for Harima, so he decides to take the last card, taking them to the restaurant. As soon as they see it, Akira says that there is a dress code, and Shujin asks his brother if he can pay for it, and Harima is sure he can. But when they enter, the restaurant screams expensive everywhere and Harima wants to escape, but Tenma is so happy that now he doesn't know what to do. So he decides to continue with the charade that he has enough money and orders the best dish for everyone. Tenma and Shujin are so happy with the food that they order more and more, and then they order all the desserts, making Harima break out in a cold sweat. He doesn't know how he's going to pay for all this. So he goes to the bathroom to think about something when he runs into Eri, who was at the luxurious restaurant with her father. She decides to pay for everything and tells Harima not to keep Tenma and Shujin waiting. At the end of dinner, Harima wants to tell Tenma that his birthday is tomorrow, but he doesn't have the courage. And in the end, he spends his birthday at the zoo with his giraffe. Chapter 13, days later, testing time is approaching and there is a rumor at school that if you see a guy with gray hair and a serious face, it means you will miss a year in school. And unfortunately, Harima keeps seeing him, so he decides to study a lot. The next day, Harima continues seeing the old man and has no choice but to ask Itoko for help, so at night, she writes words in English to him as a talisman against the old man. On the first day of the test, Harima is asked to erase those words from his body, but fortunately, he managed to remember the correct answers thanks to those words. On the second day of the test, the students continue studying, especially the couples who want to go to the same college together, while Harima seems possessed by a spirit trying to remember answers. On the other hand, Tenma feels defeated and already assumes that she is going to be held back a year and will be separated from Karasuma. Then her friends decide to go to her house later to help her study, but they soon realize that Tenma is an impossible case. She has not studied during the entire course and only has one day to learn everything. First, they teach her physics and math, which almost knocks her out. Then they teach her Japanese history using Karasuma to make her remember the historical events. On the third day of testing, many do poorly in the test, but Tenma manages to pass. On the other hand, the rumor of the old man is not the only one that haunts the school. It is also said that the Loch Ness monster appears in the school pool at night, but in reality, it is Piotr the giraffe who needed a bath. After helping Yakumo bathe the giraffe, the girls go to Tenma's house to have a sleepover and gossip about Mikoto and Aso. She confesses to them that the other day, she went out shopping even though the store was closed, then they went to eat. But she only drank a soda, then they went to an arcade. But she stopped them from going to the photo booth, and finally, she beat him in a driving game. The girls move her saying that she all kinds of love buds, although she did not tell them that Aso did flirt with her. Chapter 14, days later, Class 2C decides to celebrate Tenma's birthday, and Megumi gives her the power to be the queen for a few hours, and she can ask for whatever she wants. So Tenma gets out of control and starts asking for strange things. She asks Eri to eat beans, the food that Eri hates the most. Akira to smile, and she does it but alone, and she almost makes Mikoto kiss Akira. Harima watches everything and thinks that she's acting strange because Karasuma is not present, so he quickly thinks of a plan to make her smile. He asks her to talk alone and gives her a bouquet of flowers saying they are from Karasuma, although she realizes that he wrote Karasuma's name on his, so as queen she forces him to tell the truth. Then Harima confesses that they are his flowers and she thanks him smiling and returns to the party, but with a sad smile, while Harima leaves because his editor says that a famous mangaka needs help with some drawings. On the other hand, while most of the students have fun with extreme trivia games or unimaginable challenges, questions about Karasuma increase and Hamai comments that the teacher told him that Karasuma goes to America every month and takes review classes so as not to be left behind in his education. Later, Harima arrives at the publishing house and cannot believe that the manga artist who needs help is Nijuju, that is Karasuma. Harima realizes that he is drawing a romantic comedy, something different from what he usually does, and that leads him to think about Tenma. So he asks him to go to her party and Karasuma listens to him while Harima covers for him. But it won't be free. Harima begins to draw sunglasses on the main character. On the other hand, Karasuma arrives at Tenma's house, which makes her very happy. But Yakumo receives a call for help from Harima, and she goes to the publishing house. It turns out that he knocked over an entire inkwell in the layouts that he was inking and tried to escape through the window, but it was impossible because they were on the 26th floor. Then Harima tells her that he will redraw the story but with another plot, one of baseball, zombies, monsters, and a little romance. The problem is that Harima doesn't know how to put romance into the story and Yakumo blushes thinking about a possible scenario, and when she tells it to Harima, he thinks it's a great idea. But since that never happened to him, he doesn't know how to draw it, so he asks Yakumo to recreate it. Harima falls to the floor and Yakumo pretends that she falls on top of him, and according to the story they are drawing, they fell in love instantly, but Harima finds it hardly credible. So he decides to make the protagonist fall in love with him little by little. After that, they hand the job over to Harima's boss, who is a little confused because this isn't Karasuma's original story, but it is a good one. On the way home, Yakumo gives Harima a belated birthday gift. Chapter 15. Sometime later, Harima's manga is published in a magazine and the girls praise the story without knowing that it is Harima's. Even Tenma says that she liked it, which brings Harima to maximum happiness. At night, Harima goes to the publishing house and takes Yakumo with him. They meet the company's chief, who usually causes a lot of fear because of his size, but Yakumo does not let herself be intimidated. Then the chief asks Harima to draw a new 120-page manga during the winter break, which makes him panic because there's very little time, so he and Yakumo run to Itoko's apartment to start working. But unfortunately, she went on a skiing vacation in the mountains and left the apartment locked, and Harima lost his key. After that, the two go to Yakumo's house and she asks Tenma for permission to let Harima live with them during the winter break. Although this surprises her, Tenma accepts. The next day, Harima wakes up thinking it was all a dream and almost jumps with happiness when he realizes that he is living under the same roof as Tenma. Everything seems so homely. The three of them have breakfast together under the heat of the kotatsu, and then while Tenma washes the dishes, he helps her by putting them in the cupboard. He feels that they look like a newly married couple, until Yakumo reminds him that he has work to do and he runs to his room. Later, Harima misses lunch and snacks, so Yakumo brings him some cake, but finds him frustrated without being able to draw a single page. He explains that he already has the plot of the story, but he doesn't know how to draw different postures of his characters, and she offers to pose for him. After a long afternoon of work, he runs out of ink and she runs to buy more, despite that it's almost time for dinner. Later, she returns with the ink and finds Tenma and Harima laughing together, and for the first time, she sees him truly smile. Meanwhile, at her mansion, Eri sadly looks at her suitcases, saying that no one will miss her if she leaves. The next day, Yakumo can't stop thinking about how to help Harima, and inadvertently, her kitten gives her the solution. It was biting into a pamphlet about a school for manga editors. She goes to class and is surprised to see the head of Harima's company giving the educational talk. He sees her and says that she will be a good manga editor and asks her to work for his company in the future. Meanwhile, at home, Yakumo wants to know if Harima is a good guy for her sister and asks several of her friends for advice on how to find out. After that, she dresses and does her hair like Yakumo and goes to Harima's room to test him. But he immediately realizes that she is not Yakumo, but Tenma, and thinks that she wants to get his attention because he spends a lot of time with Yakumo. So he decides to do everything she asks, from eating the spicy food she makes, solving a problem with a fake cockroach, and being honest about his finances. To Tenma's surprise, Harima passes all the tests and she tells him that he is the perfect guy for Yakumo, which shocks him because now he realizes that she still thinks that he likes Yakumo. At night, Harima decides to tell Tenma the truth about his feelings, but he gets the wrong room and Tenma, who is spying on him, surprises them there, making him break out in a cold sweat. Chapter 16. The next day, Harima wakes up very cold on the street since Tenma took him outside for sneaking into Yakumo's room, but he thinks he came out alone because he sleepwalks. When he enters the house, Tenma informs him that from now on he will sleep in a tent in the garden. Yakumo thinks that her sister is going too far and Tenma assures her that Harima knows what he did in his heart, but he has no idea. At night, Harima decides to tell Tenma the truth about his feelings, but Tenma notices the masculine energy coming through her door and thinks the worst of Harima, so she kicks him out of the house. The next day, Harima wanders the streets without knowing where to go and runs into Mikoto, who invites him to live during winter break in the Hame dojo, but he does not accept and continues wandering and selling handkerchiefs to get money. Later, Mikoto convinces him to help her carry the shopping bags and then makes him agree to stay at the dojo. The next day, Harima feels freer walking around the dojo and takes off his sunglasses. While he makes himself a coffee, Eri also asks him for one, thinking that he is a worker and without recognizing him because his face looks different without sunglasses. So he gives her coffee and runs away. Later, it starts to rain and the two bump into each other again when they are going to pick up the clothes, and Eri still doesn't suspect that he is Harima. At night, Eri and Mikoto have a practice match to relieve stress, since Eri has a lot of things on her mind. Later, Mikoto goes to look for clothes to bathe in, and Eri also goes to the bathroom and is surprised to see someone there and assumes it is Mikoto. But in reality, it is Harima covered in steam. She starts talking to him and notices that her voice is thicker, and Harima no longer knows what to do to get out of this. Fortunately, Mikoto sees them from the window and decides to help Harima, but it's not the help he thinks. She asks Eri what she thinks of Harima, and Eri rudely answers that she wouldn't like to be with him because she saw him hungry in the streets earlier, and she couldn't be with him either because she's going to get married soon. That shocks Mikoto and Harima. She says that it is a marriage arranged by her parents and she has to go to an engagement meeting soon, and that's why she ran away from home. She will be back soon. Suddenly, Eri is about to get into the bathtub with Harima, so he blows bubbles simulating a fart, which makes Eri run away. After that, Mikoto scolds Harima for embarrassing her like that, and he assures her that it was a fake fart with no smell. Then she asks him what they will do to help Eri, but Harima says that he has a lot of problems of his own and he can't think of helping anyone else, and Mikoto decides to leave him alone. Later, someone knocks on the door and Harima is upset because he is the one who has to open it. Is Nakamura, the butler, has come to look for Eri, but Mikoto comes running and assures him that she is not here. Then Mikoto prepares an escape plan and gives them a motorcycle so that Harima can take Eri away. And although he protests because he has work to do, Mikoto reminds him that he is an employee of the dojo and must obey, which seems strange to Eri, but she still gets on the motorcycle with him and runs away. Chapter 17, Nakamura realizes that Eri has escaped and asks for help from his disciple Masaru, who goes to Tenma's house and kidnaps her. On the other hand, Nakamura pretends to be Iso and Mikoto's boyfriend, making her parents happy that their daughter finally has a boyfriend. Meanwhile, Eri and Harima continue driving aimlessly until they come across Eri's family's limousine in which Masaru is carrying Tenma. Harima abruptly stops the motorcycle and Eri texts Tenma, to which she responds that she is going to her engagement party, leaving Eri confused. Then Harima thinks that they are going to engage Tenma with Eri's fiancé and is ready to go and stop that engagement, and not only him, Tenma too, since she received a message from Mikoto where she told her that Eri's family wanted to marry her in against her will. Harima and Eri follow the limousine as best they can until the wheel falls flat and they seek refuge in a temple. It's very cold and there is only one blanket, so Eri starts talking to him to have more confidence when it comes to sharing the blanket, although that makes Harima angry because he thinks that Eri thinks she is the prettiest and cutest girl on the planet, so she probably thinks that the worker is in love with her. But without realizing it, the two begin to talk about serious things and he confesses that he will do everything possible to get what he wants and nothing will stop him, which makes Eri admire him and want to be like him. So she decides to be more daring and goes to sleep next to him and share the blanket. The next day, the two arrive at Eri's house, where they plan to pass off Harima as her suitor, and between the two of them annul the engagement. While Eri goes to change, Harima goes to the room where the engagement will be signed and finds Tenma pretending to be Eri and behaving as rude as possible to break the engagement since she didn't even realize that the guy is Harima, which works against Harima because he wants to marry Tenma and loses focus of the matter. On the other hand, Eri's mother asks her to talk alone and apologizes for what is happening, and Eri pretends that everything is fine for a moment, but then tells her the truth, and that gives her the confidence to break her own engagement. On the other hand, Tenma tries her best to annoy Harima, but he just finds her adorable. Finally, Tenma tries to play with his face and accidentally puts some sunglasses on him, and at that moment, Eri walks in and sees Harima, not the employee who is going to help her. Chapter 18. The next day, Mikoto asks Eri how the night with Harima went on, and she says that they only slept together sharing a blanket, which disappoints Mikoto because she thought they would talk about their feelings, so she calls Akira to tell her that she lost their bet. Suddenly, Akira comes out of the closet and tells Eri that she is gutless, then she tells her that she must pay Mikoto for giving her housing and food, and Eri agrees, so Akira gives her the address where Mikoto's family is offering job. The next day, Eri and Harima meet at the designated place and realize that they have been played because Mikoto told Harima that she would give him a job while Eri went for Akira. The job consists of assembling and decorating a large Christmas tree in the Central Park, and Eri is so admired by its beauty that many offer to carry the heavy boxes for her. Later, at the break lunch, she goes to sit next to Harima, but he doesn't even want to talk to her. But she insists on talking to him because she feels played by him and Mikoto. If she had known it was him, she wouldn't have shared the blanket with him. While Harima doesn't want to have anything to do with her because he knows that she attracts bad luck, and he is right, at that moment, Tenma arrives and he hides from her. Eri tells Tenma that Harima is also working with her, and Tenma advises her to be careful with him because he is a who wants to touch girls at night, and even though Eri thinks a lot of bad things about him, she tells Tenma that probably it's a mistake. Harima is not someone who would disrespect a girl, so he is determined to tell Tenma the truth about him, but a big Christmas bell crushes him. The next day, Sarah receives a message from Akira asking her to go to the school's old tea room, but there she only sees a giant penguin with its back turned, and when she approaches, she gets stuck on the floor. Then Yakumo enters, who is also stuck. Then Yakumo calls Tenma to help them, but she can't tell her not to enter the room, so Tenma runs in and gets stuck. At that moment, Akira reveals that she is wearing a thick penguin suit that allows her to go out, and she just wanted to take an embarrassing photo of them, but she makes a wrong step and gets stuck. Tenma already imagines living stuck there for years, but Akira says that someone will come to save them soon since she saw that on the floor below someone is working on a manga and he will surely want silence, and she is right. Harima enters dressed as a Santa and with a rubber hammer hits their heads as if they were moles, and they fall on the mattress where Harima sleeps since he is homeless again. On the other hand, in a cafe, Yashivayama, Nara, and Nishimoto are envious of Togo and Harry since they are on a date and can go out with the girl they want. This is heard by Togo, who says that he will invite them to his party if they make his heart boil. So the three boys decide to imitate Harry. They put on suits, tinted glasses, and Nishimoto even dyes his hair blonde, but Togo says that that is not enough. So they carefully observe Harry's behavior with girls, and they see how he steals a French fry from a girl to flirt with her. So the three of them attack a girl and steal her soda, hamburger, and fries, but they had not realized that the girl was Lala, who sent them flying. As they fall from the sky, Yashigayama has an epiphany that they must be themselves, which wins Togo's approval, and he formally invites them to his party. At night, the three attend the party dressed elegantly like the other guests and are fascinated by the number of girls, but suddenly, Harry receives a call and has to go. The problem is that the girls are leaving with him. Only the three boys remain at the party, Lala and Togo, who decides to make them dance the waltz among themselves. Chapter 19. Sometime later, Harima wakes up in a cell as he had been drawing on the street and fainted, so a police officer brought him to the police station to sleep undercover. Harima tells him exhausted that he finally finished drawing his new manga and receives a call from his editor. He tells Harima that he must hand in his manuscript today because the chief trusts him, and it is an important step for his future. Then, Harima starts to seriously think about his future. He never thought he would have one, so he decides to go tell the whole truth to Tenma. He arrives at Tenma's house, but she does not receive him well. She tells him that the limits of the house are prohibited for him and forbids him to approach her sister. Harima can't take it anymore and tells Tenma the truth. He is an amateur mangaka, and Yakumo is his secret assistant who reads his manuscripts and helps him as much as she can. Tenma doesn't believe him at first, but he shows her his new manuscript and she is surprised, saying that it is very interesting, and she is shocked when Yakumo proudly says that it will be published in a magazine. Unfortunately, the snowstorm gets worse and the trains have stopped running, so Harima takes Tenma's curry dish and uses it as a sled to get to the publisher's party where he can present his manuscript. Along the way, he encounters many obstacles, but he also runs into Akira. He also runs into Itoko and Yoko, who were returning from their ski trip. On the other hand, Tenma at her house feels very guilty because she was angry all this time with Harima for no reason. Suddenly, she receives a call from Mikoto telling her what Akira saw, and Itoko also arrives to ask Tenma to accompany her somewhere. Later, Harima arrives at the party in Tenma's giant dish, which breaks into 1,000 pieces. He runs and gives the manuscript to the editor-in-chief, and when he finishes reading it, he tells Harima that he can't publish it. Harima doesn't understand why, but Karasuma stops him before he complains. At that moment, Tenma enters brought by Itoko and grabs a piece of the dish and serves her curry and gives it to Karasuma, crying, and then runs away. Harima finally understands that he used a dish that had curried a sled, so he runs after Tenma, and when he finds her crying, he apologizes and hugs her, which causes Tenma to almost faint from blushing. Then she also apologizes for being so angry before, and they shake hands, being friends again. Chapter 20 days later. Ichiju's brother tells her that his internet friend is coming to visit him today, but she is so tired from her training that she goes to sleep. When she wakes up, she hears a familiar voice and soon realizes that Imidori is playing with her brother Kosuke, which is not surprising since Imidori is very childish. So Ichijo quickly knocks him out so she can fold all her clothes and clean the room a bit, but not before he finds one of her. She takes it back and feels a little self-conscious about having him there, but soon joins them in their childhood games where the three of them pretend to be the Power Rangers. At night, when Imidori leaves, Kosuke asks her sister to go out with him because he wants him as a brother-in-law, but she doesn't respond because she sees that Imidori was leaving with her in his pocket and runs to take it away. The next day, Yuki and Fuyuki meet on the snowy roof of the school to see the stars through the telescope, but they can't talk much because Megumi and Ichijo arrive. The four of them start talking about what they did this year, and Megumi proudly says that she helped match 10 couples throughout the year, while Ichijo confesses that she did nothing important, but Megumi says that she got Imidori to visit her at her house, even though it was Kosuke who invited him. Then Fuyuki offers to go buy hot coffee, but Megumi offers to go buy them accompanied by Ichijo, since she once matched the 11th couple of the year. Yuki complains because she thinks her friends misunderstood her friendship with Fuyuki. Also, she thinks so little of herself that she says she doesn't believe a boy will like her, but Fuyuki says that he likes taking photos of girls because he can see the beauty in everyone, including her. For him, she is a star. On the other hand, Karasuma draws a new manga where the protagonists look like their classmates, and it's about a future where cyborgs control the world. Tenma is a new employee who works in the cyborg division. She was found on the streets without memory, and she's in love with her boss Karasuma, which makes her division colleagues play pranks on her. Then she runs to the roof to cry, and her friends tell her that they were just joking with her because she is new, but Karasuma also goes up to the roof to tell her the truth about her past. Suddenly, the cyberspace is attacked by the evil villain Hamai, and the squad of cyborg girls enter the virtual world to fight against metallic bees. Unfortunately, all the girls fall in battle and only Tenma remains, but Karasuma tells her the truth about her past before the final battle. She is a cyborg created by Hamai since she had an accident. This angers Tenma so much that she awakens a power in her heart, the Suge power, which is capable of maneuvering a giant robot. Chapter 21. At Harima's publishing house, there are also other mangakas who submit their manuscripts and are quickly rejected. For example, one where Mei is the protagonist. She is a magical girl who fights for the peace of the city with the help of her black cat and the masked man with the blue rose, and not only that, she is the daughter of King Toho and Queen Lala. She fights against all kinds of evils, even defending children from their... Although this time Tenma appears dressed as Wonder Woman, she saves the child and mocks Mei. Before leaving, Tenma leaves her a blue letter and leaves laughing like a villain, so Mei knows that the letter does not have good news. Inside the letter, there is a villain who has her masked man and will only free him if she goes to talk to him. Later, Mei goes to the mountain shrine where she meets Akira, who advises her to be brave and not give up. When Mai enters the mountain shrine, she realizes that it is a castle that is gradually falling apart, and her guide will be Karasuma, who tells her that this castle was designed by him. The owner does not care much, and that is why he also wants to talk to him. Finally, Mai arrives where the lord of the castle is, and it is none other than Harima wearing a wrestling mask. He tells her that there cannot be two magical girls in the city and asks her to leave the job. Then Mei realizes that Harima is referring to Tenma, and he loves her so much that he wants to get rid of the competition. She almost gives up because she can't imagine herself being a magical girl forever, while Tenma is already a Wonder Woman. Unfortunately for Harima, the masked man with the blue rose speaks and asks Mei not to give up, and the battle between Harima and Mei begins. Although this is not very long because Mei can barely see Harima's almost body, luckily her beloved masked knight manages to free himself from his ropes and helps her defeat Harima. Before leaving, she asks him to take off his mask, and when he does, he surprises everyone when he reveals himself as Nishimoto. Returning to the real world, the mangaka presents another manuscript. This time, it is an assembly of different manga where basketball, space, and the Knights of the Zodiac are combined. But this manuscript is also rejected. Chapter 22. It's finally New Year, and Tenma puts on her yukata to go to the shrine and wonders if her beloved Karasuma will go. Meanwhile, Harima dreams of him and Tenma finally being together as a couple and wakes up full of hope because they say that New Year's dreams come true. So he gets dressed quickly and goes to the shrine, but unfortunately, he finds a smiling Tenma with Karasuma. On the other hand, Mikoto's family is the organizer of the New Year's event at the shrine, but a mishap has occurred and she has to go look for something. So she asks Harima to replace her under the dragon costume. Unfortunately for Harima, the other person under the dragon disguise is Eri, who is also not happy to see him. Harima is in charge of leading the dragon dance, and he does it professionally, bringing joy to everyone in the shrine. And Ichiju insists that her brother let himself be bitten by the dragon to have good luck this year, but that is misinterpreted by Lala, who grabs a quiver of arrows and starts to Harima and Eri. So Ichiju stops her and explains Japanese culture to her. While Harima finally catches a glimpse of Tenma and Karasuma, they seem to be having a good time. So he convinces Eri to ride the dragon through the streets instead of staying at the shrine, and she follows him. Tenma and Karasuma first go to have a drink, then to watch a movie. They walk around the city, and finally they go to watch the sunset from a cliff, and everywhere they are followed by Harima and Eri. Karasuma notices that the dragon is following them and thinks it is a... So he asks Tenma to close her eyes and throws the dragon off the cliff, and when Tenma opens her eyes, Karasuma gives her a gift. After that, Karasuma has to climb the mountain with Eri holding onto his back, since she can't climb up by herself and he keeps apologizing. The next day, following Japanese New Year customs, the students of Class 2C gather on the beach to fly kites, but Akira and Itoko compete among themselves and decide to use Harima and Hamai as their champs. In the air, the two fight while being handled by the girls, but when Hamei is about to deal a monumental blow to Harima, the string of his kite cuts and he flies away. In the afternoon, everyone plays cards guessing Japanese poems, and after that, Tenma and Eri play a type of Japanese tennis, which Tenma loses and Eri makes fun of her. So Gikumo takes her place and beats Eri. The punishment for losing is having your face painted with ink, but Eri orders Harima to take her place because she spent all day yesterday at the bottom of the cliff, so Harima reluctantly accepts Yakumo's punishment, and she draws him a beard with ink. Chapter 23. The next day, Tenma weighs herself, and unfortunately, the scale shows her that she ate too much on New Year's Eve, so she intends to go on a diet, but that is almost impossible since Yakumo cooks deliciously. Suddenly, Tenma receives a call from Mikoto. She invites her to a skiing trip, and Tenma quickly accepts since skiing is good for burning calories. On the other hand, while Akira is buying things for her trip with the girls, she runs into Harima, who is buying a special notebook for his new manuscript since his boss asked for a new one. She tells him that they are going on a trip, including Tenma, before Harima would have jumped at the idea of being able to go. And he does it, but mentally, since he can't really go, he has work to do. When he arrives at Itoko's apartment, he finds a message from her saying that she went to the beach with Yoko, but this time he has a spare key, although she knew he wouldn't stay outside this time, so she left him a message inside. On the other hand, Lala is mesmerized watching an ice skating competition and neglects her clothes washer. The next day, Tenma and the girls are in the mountains. The first thing they do on their trip is ski, and the girls are surprised to learn that Tenma knows how to ski better than all of them. She's almost a professional. She can fascinate some boys who show them their skiing skills, and one of them forms a heart in the air with his skis. But Tenma doesn't think it's a big deal, and she leaves with the girls. Her friends think that Tenma is acting very mature. Karasuma appears out of nowhere being a snowman and turns Tenma into the same trembling crybaby as before. All her confidence disappears, and she just wants to show him that she loves him, so she convinces the girls to help her make a heart in the air with their skis. But everything goes wrong, and Karasuma understands that the girls want to tell him that he is fat, so he also does pirouettes in the air thanking them. On the other hand, Lala has invited all of her friends to an ice rink since it is her skating debut. She even puts on a professional skater dress. But Shiju insists that she put on casual clothes. After that, everyone skates while she tries, but she doesn't do well. After that, everyone goes to eat, and Imadori brings a pamphlet about an ice skating competition for couples. The prize is a camera and a washing machine. Lala and Ichiju want to participate since they both need the prize, so they sign up for the competition along with Togo and Midori, while Harry and Satsuki decide not to participate. The first to skate are Ichiju and Togo. She is a spectacular skater full of grace, while Togo is a skilled skater who can do pirouettes, but he concentrates so much on himself that he forgot that the competition is in pairs. Next are Lala and Imadori. But when they enter, people laugh at Lala because she put on the speed skater suit at Imadori's suggestion. He bursts out laughing at his joke, which arouses Lala's anger, and she chases him around the rink, spinning him around with her strength, achieving a frightening and perfect routine. On the other hand, Yakuno has a cold and is passed out on the kitchen floor with no one to help her, only her cat, so the cat tells Harima's animals. The giraffe first warms up under the kotatsu and then tells Harima that there is a problem at Tenma's house, and he runs there willing to help. He takes care of Yakumo, carrying her to a warm futon, while her cat puts snow on her head. Harima is tired from the run to Tenma's house, so he decides to rest for a while, but falls asleep. Chapter 24. After the trip to the snowy mountains, Eri pays for a cruise to the Caribbean for everyone in 2C, but poor Harima can't enjoy it because he still has pages to draw, so he locks himself in the warehouse next to the Super Tuna. After a while, Eri takes the Super Tuna and Harima offers to fillet it into sashimi, but he doesn't have the strength, so Masaru takes care of it. After that, Masaru goes to the captain's cabin, and Nakamura leaves him the helm with the order not to turn it while he goes to the bathroom. On the other hand, Harry and Togo continue their canoe cruise, since they wanted to exercise, although they go up on deck when it is time to eat the sashimi. After that, they realize that they are about to hit a reef, and no matter how much Eri and Harima try to make Masaru change the direction of the rudder, it is too late and the cruise ship hits the reef. The entire engine and radios are damaged, so Masaru and Nakamura go by canoe to find help. A storm is approaching and the ocean waves become furious, rocking the boat at will. On the other hand, Hame, who had gone flying on a kite a few days ago, wakes up in Mexico, where all the inhabitants are the same as his friends, although a little more tanned. Luckily for him, Lala is there to guide him to Queen Eri, who announces to the inhabitants that Yakumo will be to calm the fury of the beast that attacks them. Hame does not allow the tanned Yakumo to be so he takes her place, and at night, Yakumo takes him to the place of where he will face the beast next to the statue of Cute Panda. Suddenly, a gigantic wild boar approaches, and Hame doesn't know what to do to defeat it until he notices that Cute Panda's eyes are shining, so he puts his glasses on the statue, and this makes it wake up. The battle between the giant boar and Cute Panda begins, but it doesn't last long because Cute Panda punches it, sending it flying away. After that, he gets on his kite and flies off towards Japan. Meanwhile, on Eri's ship, everyone wakes up from a long dream where they saw Hame in ancient Mexico, and is even more surprised when he lands his kite using a Mexican poncho. No one knows if the dream was real or not. Hame cannot believe that he is now docked on his ship, and the worst thing is that they no longer have food, so everyone decides to take a nap, but the hours continue to pass and the hunger increases. Suddenly, Tenma starts hallucinating and sees penguins in the distance, and one of them looks like Karasuma, and she thinks it's a message not to give up. That hope is spread throughout the ship, causing some to go check the engine and others to try fishing. Suddenly, the ship looks like it's going to be hit by a white whale, but it falls in love with Yakumo, and she asks it to help them. Then they tie a rope to the whale's body and it takes them, but not to Japan, since the whale did not know where they wanted to go. Chapter 25. Days later, everyone is back in Japan, and Harima has a new manuscript to deliver since the last one was not accepted, so he draws non-stop while waiting for Yakumo. But when someone knocks on the door, it's not Yakumo who's outside, but Tenma. She says that Yakumo couldn't come and she will replace her and raid everything Harima needs, which makes him nervous since she doesn't know that he lives with Itoko, and even though she is his cousin, Tenma might misunderstand him, so he hides Itoko's shoes. After that, he prepares tea, and Itoko takes back her shoes and tells him that she will go to Yoko's place to give them privacy and asks him not to waste this golden opportunity. Harima nervously goes to his room and gives the tea to Tenma, who is ready to read the manuscript, but Harima realizes that the protagonists of his manuscript are him and Tenma, so he plans to blur Tenma's drawings so that she don't realize it. But when she tells him that she found his latest manga interesting, he decides it's a good idea to subtly show her that he's in love with her. Unfortunately for him, Tenma is a bit dim and just thinks they are the same characters from the past manga. Suddenly, Harima's cell phone rings and Otoko asks him how things are going with Tenma, but he cuts the call immediately. Then Tenma excitedly tells him that they both have the same ringtone from their favorite series, which reminds them that they are missing a 3-episode special, so Tenma writes to her sister to record the episodes for her. Meanwhile, Yakumo takes care of her things, happy for having sent Tenma to Harima, since she wants her sister to realize that he is a good guy. Suddenly, her cat knocks over a bookcase of family photo albums and she nostalgically scrolls through the photos until she sees a photo of her hugging a book. On the other hand, Tenma and Harima continue talking about their favorite series until he receives a call from Mitsui, his editor. He tells her that the deadline is tomorrow morning. Then Tenma encourages Harima to finish and promises to be by his side, although he takes it too literally and thinks that they are going to be together all their lives and begins to draw with more enthusiasm. The problem is that Tenma is not skilled like Yakumo, and she paints some panels entirely with ink, so Harima makes her sharpen his pencils to keep her busy. Despite that, she says that his manga plot is sad because she knows what it's like to experience one-sided love, and Harima agrees with her because he's living it. While Tenma thinks about how to confess her feelings to Karasuma, Harima does too, but their thoughts are interrupted by their growling stomach. Harima offers to order delivery, but Tenma insists on cooking, and as expected, she burns the noodles. Even so, Harima eats them. After that, he makes coffee for both of them, but Tenma falls asleep on the floor and he puts her in his bed. Meanwhile, Yakumo looks for the book in the picture and reads it. It is a children's story where its protagonists, Otama and Yurei, are at first inseparable, but when they separate, the two miss each other and do not stop looking for each other. At that moment, Yakumo saw the ghost again, and the little girl says that Yakumo likes Harima. On the other hand, Harima doesn't stop drawing. It's already 4 a.m. and he doesn't have much time left. On top of that, Tenma starts talking and moving in her sleep, so he gets up to cover her with a blanket. But she takes his glasses off and hugs, saying that he loves him, and Harima can't believe that they have recreated the way he fell in love with her almost 2 years ago. Chapter 26. Yakumo is still confused by the ghost. The little girl asks Yakumo if it's okay to push Tenma towards the boy she loves and reminds her that she once wanted to fall in love with someone. Then Yakumo remembers what her relationship with Tenma was like when they were little girls. Yakumo was always quite clumsy and dim, but very affectionate. She used to call her Yamo in an affectionate way, but that bothered Yakumo. Tenma always wanted to help her with her homework, but she only managed to ruin her drawings or sculptures of clay. One day, Tenma tries to wash Yakumo's favorites book because it was dirty, so she put it in the washing machine, and that was a breaking point for Yakumo, since that book was the last gift from their father before he passed away. Yakumo burst into tears and locked herself in her room, asking Tenma not to get closer to her because he hated her. After hours of crying, she remembered how her father used to read the book to her, and how the moral of the story was about knowing how to forgive. So when she left her room, she found Tenma sleeping outside with a new Otama and Yurei book with a little apology letter. From that moment on, they became inseparable, so Yakumo tells the ghost that Tenma is the person she loves the most, and she would be happy for her to be with someone who does love her. The ghost distrusts her response, and she thinks she is not sincere, but she disappears. Meanwhile, Harima is still hugged by Tenma, and when he is about to kiss her, she whispers Karasuma's name and wakes up finding Harima on top of her. He quickly apologizes and clarifies that it is not what she thinks, but Tenma looks him straight in the eyes and realizes that they have already experienced this before. 2 years ago, a guy tried to take advantage of her. Harima clarifies that he is that person, but she misinterpreted the situation that time too, and when he tries to explain why he wore glasses and a beard to hide his face from her all this time, he receives a call from Mitsui. He asks him to hurry up with the manuscript, since everyone is a little crazy about the Karasuma incident, which shocks Harima because he believes that Karasuma has had an accident on this rainy night. Harima tells Tenma, and they both get on their motorcycle ready to go to the hospital in search of Karasuma. Tenma doesn't stop crying while holding his back. Suddenly, lightning strikes a tree and it cuts off their path and knocks them off the motorcycle. Harima takes Tenma in his arms and protects her from the fall, but when he leaves her on the ground, he is hit by a truck. Later, when Tenma wakes up, Yakumo tells her that Karasuma is fine as she cries inconsolably in his arms without caring about Harima's fate. She asks Karasuma what happened to him, and he tells her that the incident was that he met a famous soccer player and took a photo with the entire team. Meanwhile, in the next bed, Otoko scolds Harima for using the motorcycle in a rainy night. Days later, Harima refuses to return to the third semester, but Otoko forces him. When Tenma sees him, he runs away from her, which causes everyone's curiosity. They run through all hallways until they reach the roof. Tenma corners Harima and asks him why he runs away from her, and he tells him that he can't look her in the face after what she found out. But Tenma doesn't understand and tells him that she doesn't remember much about the night of the accident because she hit her head. That makes Harima so happy that he gets off the fence, and she gives him a copy of the 3-episode special of their favorite series that Yakumo recorded for them. Harima can't believe his good luck. His hopes of conquering Tenma are still alive. After that, they return to the classroom and Yuki informs them that the third semester field trip will be to England. At home, Tenma keeps telling Yakumo everything she will do in England. Then, Yakumo goes to her room and reads the story of Otama and Yuri again. At the end of the book, there is a page where she and Tenma are drawn smiling, since her father once told her that the last blank page was for her to draw about her future. Yakumo loves that book very much since Tenma bought it for her even though it was very expensive. But in reality, Tenma asked for it from the public library and never returned it. OVA 1. Weeks later, Togo inaugurates one of the last athletic events for the second-year students. Everyone runs along the beach, and Tenma tries to talk to Karasuma, but he runs further and further away from her every time she opens her mouth. For trying to reach him so much, Tenma falls and ends up whimpering, so Karasuma stops and helps to get up. Tenma thinks it's the most romantic moment of her life, so she tries to confess her feelings to him. All this is seen by Harima, who feels dumped, so he decides to stop jogging, but Hame stops him and challenges him to a race to force him to finish the circuit. Harima can't stand losing a challenge, so he forgets about Tenma for a moment and cheats to get an advantage over Hame. At the end of the race, Class 2C is crowned champion, which erupts into celebration among all the students except one person. Tenma is crying her eyes out, and when her friends and Yakumo see her, she tells them what happened. Then Yakumo runs to tell Harima, who is shocked to see Tenma like this and takes Itoko's bike to get to school because Karasuma is there. When he enters classroom 2C, Harima sees Karasuma and punches him in the face until he calms down and complains that he has been playing with Tenma all this time. When he goes to hit him again, Karasuma defends himself and Harima laughs, saying that he finally dropped that stoic facade. Meanwhile, in the vicinity of the school run, Yakumo tells the girls that Karasuma is leaving for the United States today because he has to have surgery and he will not return to Japan. Tenma's friends soon devise a plan to get Tenma to see Karasuma one last time, but when they go to talk to her, she seems happy and normal, but is all a facade. Her heart is broken and she feels for having imagined many future scenarios with Karasuma. On the other hand, Harima continues trying to hit Karasuma, but he only dodges or defends himself, so Harima handcuffs him to stop him from running away for once, and it doesn't take long for the punches to come from both sides. Harima calls him out for playing with Tenma, managing to break the stoic facade that Karasuma always shows to the world. He says that he also loves Tenma, but he can't be with her, and he loves her so much that he prefers to see her happy next to someone else because he has no future. That surprises Harima because he thought that Karasuma didn't have fangs, but today he has shown him that he has them. Unfortunately, Karasuma escapes from him and takes a taxi to the airport, and the bicycle that Harima used earlier no longer has a chain, so he pedals slowly to Tenma's house. There, Tenma drowns her sorrows with alcohol, and her friends put up with her by drinking with her and listening to her amorous rants. Suddenly, Harima arrives on his motorcycle and Tenma asks him to make Yakumo happy, since at least one of them has to be lucky in love. That makes Harima a little angry, since he loves Tenma with all his heart, but for her his feelings are rubbish. And then he understands Karasuma. Knowing how to love is wanting to see the other person happy no matter if it's with someone else. So he tells Tenma that he will make her happy and puts her on his motorcycle to take her to the airport. OVA 2. As Harima and Tenma ride away on the motorcycle, Yakumo sees a bouquet of red roses lying on the floor, and she sadly realizes that Harima has pushed away his feelings once again. Then she enters the house and tells the girls that they went to the airport, and they quickly begin to plan how to make Tenma follow Karasuma to the United States. Eri will buy her a ticket, while Mikoto and Yakumo pack her suitcase and look for her passport, and Akira calls Harry and Togo to help Harima. Meanwhile, Harima drives at high speed, attracting the attention of the police, but surprisingly, Harry and Togo arrive and distract the police so they can get to the airport. The gas seems like it's going to run out, which makes Harima scream in frustration. He is so close to fulfilling a wish for the woman he loves. He realizes that he was shouting out his feelings for Tenma, but she doesn't seem to have listened. Later, they arrive and Tenma runs into the airport, but it's too late. Karasuma's plane has already left, so she cries her eyes out until Harima comes in and tells her that the girls got her a flight that leaves later, they just need to wait. While they wait, Tenma asks Harima what kind of woman he likes, and he describes her, but Tenma doesn't seem to notice it. Suddenly, Itoko and Yoko arrive with Tenma's suitcases and passport, and Harima takes her hand and runs her to her gate to say goodbye. His heart hurts, but he knows he must let her go, while Tenma cries and tells him that she was happy being her classmate. On the plane, Tenma internally says goodbye to Harima because she heard him shout that he loved her on the motorcycle and because she suspected his feelings for her a long time ago. The next day, Yakuma receives visits from Sarah, then Akira and Eri, then Hame and Mikoto, and finally all her friends, all wanting to accompany her at this time when she must live alone since they got used to having her as a younger sister thanks to Tenma always includes her in everything. The only one who did not go to visit her was Harima. who that night went to a bar and was purposely looking for a fight. The next morning, Eri finds Harima extremely beaten, and while she heals him, Harima gets angry with her because he says that she knows she is pretty and always jumps from boy to boy and clarifies that he would never like a girl like her. That breaks Eri's heart and she hits him crying, accusing him of not knowing her, because beautiful girls like her also have problems, since boys only fall in love with her looks and not with their heart. This opens Harima's eyes and he thanks her before disappearing. Meanwhile, Tenma arrives in the United States and quickly enters Karasuma's hospital room, but he does not seem to recognize her. It turns out that he has a disease that weakens his brain, making it almost impossible for him to think, and that is why he decided to stay away from Tenma, since her love for him would forever be a one-sided love. Even so, Tenma does not give up and decides to stay with him. Years later, it is only known that Harima wanders around the cities as a globetrotter singing in bars, while Tenma sends a letter to Yakumo telling her about her life. Then, one day, a miracle has occurred. On the day of the meeting, everyone wears their old school uniforms and Hamai proposes to sing old school songs, but the others do not listen to him and propose a cake fight. Karasuma continues with the usual stoic look. The only thing he does is dodge the cakes that approach Tenma until he can't stop one, but Tenma is not hit because Harima stops it with his hand. He ironically says that he did not receive the invitation to this meeting and accuses them of being cold-hearted. Suddenly, Karasuma opens his eyes wide and seems to recognize Harima, but in reality he thinks that he is Hamai and everyone is disappointed. Then Tenma stares at Harima and starts crying, thanking him for coming, and everyone starts throwing pies at Harima for making Tenma cry, even though these are tears of happiness.